What kind of warrior gets a second chance after failing to save humanity, then wakes up chained by debt as a temple slave? Zephyr already knows where the world ends, but rewriting that future means outsmarting gods, monsters, traitors, and the people who once destroyed everything. He spent his entire life fighting to save humanity, only to lose in the end anyway. He does not return as the strongest human alive. The temple forces magical depths of people. However, every time he gets stronger, a god shows up to collect the payment. This man has to worry about taxes collected by the gods themselves. He scams the gods, manipulates everyone around him, steals monster corpses. Meanwhile, the man who trained him in his past life, the ones who destroyed humanity, and a legendary treasure powerful enough to change the future, they are all waiting for him. Right after he woke up as a slave, a group of slave bullies is standing nearby, and a small boy is shaking on the ground after a beating. While they keep picking on him, their supervisor calls them back to work. Zephyr grabs a pickaxe and gets ready to blend in, then spots the same little boy thanking him from the ground. What matters now are the perks Mercedes said he'd get after going back. Soon afterward, the other slaves are stunned to see him working at crazy speed, filling bags in only minutes. Zephyr is still excited about what happened earlier. Lost in thought, he fails to notice the mining boss walking over. He calmly gives it back, and the shaken supervisor actually apologizes. The whip did not even leave a mark, each one bringing him closer to his old power. When the rankings are read, the small boy from earlier is shocked to learn he was on Zephyr's team. The boss reminds everyone that the last place team gets less bread, and that food goes to the top teams instead. Most of the slaves are people who lost their homes or adventurers crushed by temple debt. Pay off his debt and get out fast. Zephyr swiftly sees how overpriced everything is. He adds that their team usually comes in last because they are weak, and today was their first time taking first thanks to him. If one member gets targeted and weakened, the whole team suffers and drops in rank. It's expensive, so the bartender tells him to just heal naturally. Sure, he can repay it and drinks the recovery water right away. So even a little works wonders. Monsters are born from twisted mana and naturally attack humans, so they were long seen as a threat, but people eventually noticed their value. Dungeons went from dangers to valuable resources. Zephyr wonders why someone trained as an adventurer was stuck in the mines. Yet then a priestess shows up with a darker option. She gives him the contract and says the surgery can be cancelled if he pays the loan in time. Zephyr drinks the bottles down and decides his body now meets the needed condition. Goat is pleased since it means they will not need a night vision potion, and the team gets ready to head out. Dale comments on his strange abilities, but Goat shuts that down fast. That man joined the hunting team only after this dungeon was cleared, which means he knows two of them will not come back alive. The team reaches the dungeon entrance where a young boy greets them. Even though this is only scouting, the boy still tells them to be careful. Zephyr notes that the recon team's job is to gather info and measure monster activity. Even so, scouts sometimes clear a dungeon themselves if it looks manageable. Goat suggests they finish the rest on their own, but Dale pushes back, saying Zephyr is only carrying supplies and cannot be treated like a real fighter. Zephyr opens his bag and shows moon bush leaves and berries mixed with certain monster droppings. Dot loves the result and basks in the praise, while the others joke about his sudden brilliance. Goat always wanted fame but never really got it. He lied and said he was on the recon team and found that out himself. Goat, hungry for praise, loved that the new recruit was handing him the credit. Goat was not easy to win over, but that much credit was too good to pass up. Even so, the weak mana stones they gather leave him disappointed. As he leans in to inspect the bones, a giant hand burst from the cave grabs him and slams him hard into the wall. He looks calm, but inside he's terrified with no idea what kind of monster is hiding in there. A second later it slams into him too. Inside, Goat is still breathing, but his shoulder is badly hurt. He used Wall of Iron to take most of the monster's attack, but even then some of it still got through to Goat, showing just how strong this thing is. It raises other monsters, lures them in with safety, then eats them once they are grown. From it, Zephyr draws a cloth and some dragon weed. Goat feels a burst of pride. That instant, he remembers something an old soldier told him long ago. Yet then Goat watches in disbelief as Zephyr moves. Zephyr used Dragoned with his boosting perk to cancel the fear effect, but his only attack perk costs too much mana, so he cannot use it now. To Zephyr's surprise, Fade gave all of them to him, saying the world was nearing its end and someone had to use them. Remembering those words, he lunges and drives the poison spear into the monster, then cuts across one of its arms. Now Zephyr just has to stay alive until it works. On instinct, Zephyr grabs the last vial of poison and hurls it straight into its mouth. The monster howls in pain and begins to falter with only 1 minute left before the poison finishes the job. As he moves to attack again, the monster swings its tail, but Zephyr reacts fast and catches it. Once he's above it, he drops down and drives the spear into its eye. As it jerks around, Zephyr clings to the knife stuck in its eye. After drinking several recovery potions and boosting himself with his effectiveness perk, he pours all his power into his fist and brings it down with everything he has. With talent like this, the new guy is sure to rise fast. Deep in the jungle, a blonde man is wounded and surrounded by suspicious men. Without a word, the big man crushes the blonde man's skull. The marked man reacts at once and cuts it in half. 7 people died on this mission, and he wants to know if exposing one spy was worth it. He reminds Matias the raid is only a month away and says if they do not clear the Temple of Spies now, the whole thing could fall apart. Back at the Department of Human Resources, Goat submits a recommendation to move Zephyr into the hunting squad. He knows if the boy does well, the credit will come to him. Goat could hardly believe it when Zephyr asked him to forget the whole fight and act like he never saw the monster. A Stanby unit outside was there to stop theft like that, and a cleanup team would later search the dungeon for anything left behind. With a calm motion, he stored the giant monster's body inside it, right in front of Goat. In return, he only had to stay quiet. Their recon unit gets into dungeons before anyone else. Meanwhile, Zephyr is thinking about selling the monster corpse to pay his debts and leave the temple as soon as he can. He plans to join the raid and take that item for himself, hoping it's the key to his freedom. That list was always picked from the hunting team, the top 20 talents or people with strong connections. They reach the armory and Goat shows him around before leaving to check on his teammates in the hospital. As they walk by, everyone bows without a word. After they are gone, Goat explains they are official inquisitors, people nobody dares to challenge. Their leader, Sahak, is the worst of them, called the Mad Hound he loves killing, and Goat warns Zephyr to stay away from him. Then he hurls back his cape and demands to know Zephyr role. Sahak shuts him up right away, making it clear he does not care what Goat thinks. Sahak begins thinking this boy may be much stronger than he seems. Moments later, Sahak signals his men and they surround Zephyr on all sides. He trusts his squad and steps in, demanding the truth with a warning not to lie. That question sends Zephyr's mind back to the past. They betrayed humanity in the Great War and helped bring its ruin. Right now, that instinct is telling him Zephyr is dangerous. Instead, he calmly suggests they continue somewhere private, which catches Sahak off guard. Sahak is furious, but he continues it together. A huge triangular field rises around Zephyr, trapping him inside. Even so, the Madhound charges in, trusting his invisibility and the red field's power. Zephyr slips past every strike with ease, staying just out of reach while landing clean counters. Zephyr answers with a sudden flurry of heavy blows, and everyone lands. Before Zephyr can even reset, a spiked mace comes flying at him, and he barely blocks it in time. Zephyr hurls out a taunt, clearly trying to rile him up. He also sees that even against the tank's heavy, reckless swings, Zephyr continues dodging with smooth precision. Yet that hope fades when someone points out Zephyr has only been dodging and 5 minutes have already passed. The tank's chained attacks are getting faster and heavier, and Zephyr begins having trouble keeping up. Clearly still in the fight, burning with cold rage, he launches a high-speed assault, blurring around Zephyr and slashing from every angle. He moves in for a final finishing blow. Battered and bleeding, Sahak finally understands the truth. Zephyr coolly mocks him, saying if he wanted to show off his speed, he should have waited until the tank wore him down first. He pulls back against the chains and taunts the tank, calling him too scared to fight up close. The force sends the tank crashing into a wall and everyone goes silent. Yet Zephyr only smirks and walks off, reminding him that interrogation is supposed to be his job. The crowd can hardly believe what they just saw. As Zephyr walks away, Sahak can only scream after him, refusing to accept the loss. Now he just has to wait for the right person to hear about it. Using Power Boost drained him completely and left him wide open. After collapsing, Zephyr looks up and the world above him warps as a giant figure appears. Zephyr knows that skill well. A lot of people died from that drawback. As Zephyr struggles, Ursa watches with cruel delight, enjoying every second. He tries to move, but his body will not listen. With the countdown almost over, he manages to drink the mana potion just in time. Zephyr exhales, knowing he escaped for now, but only for now. In his past life, he lived through humanity's fall, so he already knows how to beat Wall of Iron. He remembers that in his last life, Wall of Iron was a purple tier skill worth 500 gold, way beyond what he could pay now. That only makes the god even angrier. She grabs a large knife and says he took out several loans with collateral, skipped every interest payment, and never meant to pay them back. If he uses mana, Shillock will come right back, so his only choice is to talk his way out. Right now there is no way he can pay it. She coldly says they'll take a finger first just to teach him a lesson. Whatever he says makes her stop the men at once. The two men just stand there shocked until she snaps and orders them out at once. Zephyr pushes even harder and calls her the Monster Breaker. Zephyr knows cheap gear will not be enough if he wants to keep exploring dungeons, so he decides to use her connections. He cannot accept that a kid embarrassed him that badly. His outburst catches the attention of a red-haired man who calls over to him. As they leave, he brings up Sahak's recent fight. The red-haired man, without warning, jams a knife into his mouth and holds it there. Without warning, he slices Sahak across the face. Losing to a boy made Inquisitor Mia's look even worse. The red-haired man gives him one condition. Sahak understands the threat right away. The orb carries the clear energy of a demon lord worshipper. He leaves the choice to Sahak. If he loses that red uniform, he's finished. Everything he fought for will disappear. This is exactly what he wanted. Ned plans to use that opening to intercept the item, kill the head of the order, and help a demon lord worshipper take over the temple. Even so, Ned is wary of everything that's been happening. Ned begins to wonder if Zephyr was sent by the master to help them. If Zephyr fails, Ned will kill himself. Then he pauses and says he has one more favor to ask. Last, he introduces Zephyr, but the mood is tense, and Goat spots it right away. No one's even touching the food, which says a lot. He says he got it from White Rose and pours a glass for each of them. Whatever their differences, they are tied together now. He still does not know if they'll help him or become people he has to get rid of later. Even so, Zephyr cannot move forward with someone who openly hates him. After a while, Goat explains their next mission and stresses how important it is. Dale gets especially annoyed because Goat made the call without asking the rest of them. He says they should go along with it for now since the reward will still be split 3 ways. He feels sure the boy will cause trouble, and if Zephyr is trying to fool them, the dungeon will expose him soon enough. Goat explains that the caves go much deeper than expected with rooms and living spaces inside. Inside, the tunnels are packed with thick spider webs. Using it, he carefully leads the team through the webs. As Zephyr explains, Dale raises an objection. Its shell is tough as steel, so swords barely work. He says he can wipe out the nest by himself. To Dale, none of it adds up. If so, going in with him could be the best way to expose him. He yanks Dale away from the web and steps in front of the swarm. Not bothered at all, he mocks the spiderlings and slams them into the ground. Zephyr swiftly calls everyone into position to face the rest of the swarm. Dale and Goat fight the monsters while pushing them into one area. With one huge swing, he destroys the whole swarm. He hates that he had to rely on to save him. Zephyr just tells him it's fine and warns him not to make the same mistake again. In his past life, Zephyr had to teach people with no talent, so Dale's focus and discipline stand out right away. To their surprise, it works just like Zephyr said, making the fight much easier. Dale drives his blade into one of the spiders, and the others jump in to finish it off. After stepping down from the pile of corpses, Zephyr casually tells them to rest for a bit. Yet when that memory comes back, his face hardens. That instantly fires the group up for the last battle. The order leaves everyone stunned, and Goat is not nearly as driven as the others, especially not Dale. So when Zephyr tells them to go, Goat agrees right away. Marco refuses though, saying they are already at the final step. Yet instead of sending them away, Zephyr gives them each a job. Soon he reaches the queen spider spawning chamber. He knows they will not move unless he crosses into the lair. In the confusion, Zephyr lifts his crossbow and shoots the queen. A huge dust explosion tears through the chamber. Without slowing down, he fires poison arrows behind him, dropping one of them. When Goat doubted that webs could stop spiders, he explained they get stuck too, if they do not have the special liquid their bodies make. Now, after the explosion dried up that protective liquid, the chasing spider gets trapped in the web. She charges after Zephyr as he races for the cave exit, where the rest of the team is waiting in formation. From his past life, he knows even one drop can melt flesh and kill on contact. She bursts out after him, spraying venom everywhere. He cuts across her back and lands in front of her, making himself the main target. The queen screams even louder, furious from the hit. Everyone holds firm except Goat, who trembles at the sight of the monster. Nothing more than weak information gatherers and never missed a chance to put them down. They've come too far to shrink back. Because of that, Marco hurls himself into the battle too. Yet with Dale and Marco already set on fighting, he has no choice but to join in. Aim for the middle of the legs where the nerves run. Yet right after he lands a hit, he understands the monster is about to attack him from behind. He looks completely in control, openly daring the monster to focus on him instead. He is so fast, and he handles the monster's rage like it's nothing. Because she lays eggs in a tight spawning space, she's gotten used to barely using her rear limbs. She's mostly attacking with the front half of her body, just like he said. He planned to handle the rest himself. Yet Godspear gets lodged in one of the spider's legs. Mad over the loss of her eggs, the queen boils with rage. He grabs the venom gland and rips it out with all his strength. Without pausing, he jumps onto her body, launches himself upward, and slams a brutal kick into her skull. Dale still cannot believe they really beat the queen spider, and he turns to Zephyr for answers. Hunting under a leader like Zephyr feels completely different. Meanwhile, Zephyr is already thinking about which corpses to take back as an offering to White Rose. To his surprise, Dale begins openly praising him and even offers to cut up the corpses, make him comfortable, and finish the leftover work. As he watches them work, he comes to a new thought. His current gear and stats are not enough either, so he needs a real long-term plan. Yet while Zephyr stands there, he quietly spots shady deals happening in the temple in broad daylight. The temples take donations from believers, then use that money not just to fight monsters, but to grow their power and build cities around themselves. Even so, Zephyr knows that kind of safety will not last. He ignores the flattery and asks the only thing he cares about, how much debt is left. Then she recalls another favor she arranged for him, lab cleaning duty. Then someone walks up and calls for the priestess, both of them turn. It's Ned, an Inquisitor agent Zephyr knew in his past life. To her, it's reckless and insulting that he'd confront her client right in front of her. With a crazed look, he asks Zephyr if he knows Sahak. They lock eyes and the tension turns heavy. In that instant, she understands Zephyr may be as strong as a temple slave or even stronger. Mana gathers in his fingers as he gets ready to fight, wanting to see what he can really do. The spell only affects slaves marked by the temple, and it slams into both of them so hard they drop to their knees. As she pulls him away, she hurls Ned a cold warning. Once they are alone, she tells Zephyr the truth. Zephyr finds that speech dull, which annoys her enough to yell that he's her biggest source of income. Deep down though, he knows Ned came fully ready and was trying to provoke one. Before he goes, he quietly asks the priestess for one favor. He was only there because his master ordered it, and he's always hated the temple and the people in it. His master revealed that 2 demon lord worshippers who had snuck into the temple as priests were already executed. His master explained that the priests of light barely watched Mark's slaves, since they thought those people were easy to control. They just need to wait until the temple weakens and the priests are brought to their knees. Then one of them calls everyone to eat and the workers gather around a worn table. As soon as he enters, he asks how many people live there. At once, a monster erupts from the ground and skewers the workers without mercy. With it, he's sure that boy will never shame again. He's making a deadly fade mixture he calls the king of poisons. She did not like the idea at first, but he talked her into lending him the space. The larger pieces snap away, leaving several small, even sticks behind. From there, he says the needles will be able to kill almost anything with very little effort. With that in mind, Zephyr begins pushing the poison needles into his own body. No matter what happens, do not panic. He knows that under the right conditions, 2 poisons can cancel each other out and turn into medicine or even a potion that boosts stats. The pain drives his body to the edge, but Zephyr knows this is his only path forward. As he focuses, the mana flow steadies. The priestess is stunned, but she remembers his earlier order when he gives the sign. Hours later, deep in the forest near the Temple of Light, a beam from a slave mark shoots into the sky and a bright flash. Luckily, they already fired a flare to call for help, but the stampede is faster than anyone expected. The leader is the only one left, and he knows the temple is still at least 20 minutes away. The beast drops dead at once. Zephyr, now far stronger, tears through them with ease, aiming for their necks with ruthless accuracy. Before he can speak, Zephyr asks where the nest is. Without a word, he disappears in a single leap, leaving behind a crushing aura and a deep sense of awe that weighs on the hunter captain. To his complete disbelief, Zephyr returns moments later, dragging the severed head of the boss monster behind him. Yet Zephyr knows his next problem is equipment. As he thinks about what to do next, he fires a green flare to show the emergency is over. Madius wants the slave questioned, but Lucius says not yet. Lucius has another plan. Take people like that on the raid, then deal with them there instead of letting them cause trouble somewhere else. Mies is left speechless when he sees Michael's legendary heavenly lance and shield. Lucius says that after 10 years, they finally have a real shot at clearing the dungeon. The next morning, back at the slave quarters, Zephyr's hunting group finishes a brutal training session and spots the area has gotten way more crowded. While they talk, the priestess without warning steps out of their room and walks past. They just stare, unable to figure out how he got something like that from the priestess. It's the Ring of Purification, a relic that improves mana flow and boosts magic defense. Meanwhile, the priestess heads back to her room. Zephyr's hunting skill and poison-based growth make her wonder if he once belonged to them. If she outfits him well, he could become extremely valuable. She guessed he might be tied to an assassin group. Back with the hunting team, Goat is freaking out over Zephyr's game. Dale checks it and finds a note pinned there with a knife. Zephyr checks it too and recognizes the handwriting right away. Without delay, he rushes out, cutting through the woods at high speed while thinking about the upcoming raid. The place is insanely hard, and in over 10 years, no one has reached the boss room. Since Ned serves directly under Madius, he has enough pull to get someone added. As the dust clears, a voice calls out and Zephyr knows at once it's Sahak. He is still trying to make sense of it when Sahak pulls a knife, clearly eager to show off his new power. Zephyr flashes past and drops him with a single blow. Something slimy creeps out from under his cape. The creature finishes forming and Sahak sends it to attack at once. Yet before Sahak can press the attack, a beam of energy burns away the monster's limbs, and Zephyr steps back out unharmed and ready. That same flute also shields the user from the creature's corruption aura. That's why normal physical attacks barely help. Once infected, a victim's mind slowly falls apart until they turn violent and unstable, even attacking allies. Sure, his mind is already corrupted, but Zephyr has the Priestess Ring, a relic with curse removal. Before Sahak can react, Zephyr grabs him by the throat. Maybe then the people close to him would still be alive. Zephyr pours mana into his fist and drives it into Sahak's stomach, then follows with a savage punch that destroys his face. East Dragon's Roar, a lightning technique focused through his strike. From there he picks up the flute. He knows one exact hit can erase it, but he also has to be careful not to waste too much mana. He spots him and instantly knows he was right. This time he wants to repay that debt. While Zephyr is thinking, Ned draws his sword. Zephyr slips past everyone with ease. Even while defending, he spots his speed and accuracy. Caught up in the challenge, Ned accepts. He uses the floating cloud technique, creating an electric force that perfectly matches Ned's. Countering a lightning palm like that takes a huge defensive current and perfect timing. He knows techniques only a few people in the world have mastered. The move came from Jin Yang, a top demon lord worshipper who rose to power by mastering the Dragon King's secret arts. Those two were his son and Ned. This unknown kid used the technique and even destroyed their sacred living weapon, the monster prepared for the raid. Zephyr spots the change in Ned right away and jumps on it. As that sinks in, Ned begins to wonder if there really was a hidden third disciple, trained in secret to keep the art alive. A shadow disciple is supposed to be a hidden backup trained in case the main hairs are lost. Leaving them alive can cause trouble later. Right now, Alder and the others are keeping that person busy. He never contacted their master because doing that might ruin his chance to deal with him himself. Feeling that danger, Zephyr leans harder into the lie. The dragon heart is a rare magic core from a dragon's chest. The dungeon this raid is targeting. Ned grits his teeth and Zephyr quietly says he wants to talk about Blood Tear. Shaken, Ned asks if he knows more. Left with little choice, Ned agrees and tells him to come along. He swiftly begins going over the plan. Wanting to learn more about them, Zephyr is surprised to find out all 40 members are followers. Even so, he cannot understand why people this capable would serve the demon lord. For a moment, he even fears the master might trust Zephyr more than him. That promise is what continues Ned moving. Ned begins to wonder if the shadow disciple is just waiting for him to die and take his place, or maybe plans to kill him first. Ned wastes no time and asks Zephyr to join his group. He pauses at the offer, remembering that in his past life, Ned was swallowed by revenge and trusted the wrong person, which led to his ruin. In his past life, he missed chances to build bonds like this. The next day, the raid roster is announced along with where everyone should gather, train, and handle prep. They are truly grateful, and Zephyr tells them this should help them get promoted soon. He's drawn to Zephyr's goals, but feels he and the others are still too weak to follow him. That lifts Dale's spirits, and Zephyr leaves soon after. In 3 years, the demon lord will be summoned, and most of them will die. To his surprise, she prepared everything exactly the way he asked. He wanted them that way because the raid dungeon is full of skeletons and normal blades do not work well on them. Though the Twilight Long Sword stands out to him most. He thinks about the dungeon, how the temple failed to conquer it even after 10 years, and now even the demon lord worshippers are betting everything on it. While they keep talking, an enchanter named Agelea arrives from the temple lab and greets them politely. He wants everything ready before dealing with the other raid members. He wonders if the priestess helped lower the cost. Zephyr thanks her, then casually admits he's out of money. Zephyr teases her a little before handing over the vials. The next morning, all the raid members gather in front of the temple. He remembers only a handful survived in his past life. The team includes knights, hunting team slaves, inquisitors, and slaves from the Inquisitor's lower branch. A priest, a priestess, Matthias, and the deeply respected Lucius. Lucius received his at age 7. For many, just seeing him is a blessing. Meanwhile, Lucius begins speaking to the raid members. He adds one more rule before entering the dungeon. From there, the whole crowd prays to Almighty Arya, fired up with faith and excitement. He knows clearing a dungeon is not about glory. Getting workers, gear, and a full team together takes years, and none of it happens without investors. The Temple of Light, now acting as the third parish, is Lucius's main base, where he trains the raid members and oversees their prep. A lot of the raiders cannot keep up and get overwhelmed fast. Before long, it turns into a contest between them. Both strikes land at the same time, dropping the golem together. The slaves, especially Ned and Zephyr, make him think this group might really have a chance. With constant healing, the punishment continues going until 2 weeks feels more like 2 months. Ned, though, sits by himself deep in thought, knowing he barely ate the whole time. Hearing that, Zephyr pushes his own plate away too. Ned accepts a glass, takes a sip, and asks how much Zephyr really knows about him. Seeing the look on his face, Zephyr understands something in Ned has changed. The real question is not what the blood tear is, but where it is and who has it. His father showed it to him as a family relic, saying their ancestors won it by defeating monsters. He was sure his son would grow into a knight worthy of carrying it. The priests insisted the sword belonged to the title, and since he'd given up that title for the loan, he had no right to keep it. Young Ned saw it all and screamed for his father. If it had, even his son would have been killed. Before the crash hit, they dumped worthless items at high prices and squeezed out every last bit of profit. Worst of all was Olden, a priest close to Ned's father, who still tricked him. Meanwhile, he spent years looking for the blood tear and never found it. The Demon Lord's 12 apostles are hidden inside the temple, posing as high-ranking priests. As Ned walks with the raid party, the betrayal continues sinking in. Now he sees they were used from the start. With all of that in his head, Ned does not know what he's supposed to do next. Even before going in, some of them start trembling from the heavy dark energy around it, while others get excited for the fight ahead. Everything through the 7th, plus the gatekeeper on the 8th, has been beaten before. Back at the Temple of Light, Lucius's uncle, the head priest of the 3rd parish, welcomes reinforcements from the central parish. Yet he has no idea their leader, Olden, secretly worships the Demon Lord. Then, in the middle of the battle, 2 bone golems made from hundreds of skeletons appear. The holy priestess and the other casters react fast and cast Chain of Light, locking the golem in place. One swing is all it takes for him to cut the golem down. The holy priest orders the range fighters to bring the mage down. That means finding the mana tomb. The blast also destroys the tombstone, feeding the skeleton mage. The priestess watches in shock. What took the whole team 30 minutes? Zephyr and Ned are just as stunned by the Shining Lance's power. Meanwhile, in a meeting room set up inside the dungeon, Lucius explains the plan for the 9th floor. Lucius firmly shuts that down, reminding them the last raid failed because they tried that shortcut. Hearing that, the priest knows even the safer plan will still mean deaths, and the survivors will have to carry that weight. Back in the present, the meeting is cut off by screams from the raid team. 5 of the beasts meant to help Matthias have gone wild. At once the whole dungeon begins shifting. This was all planned days before the raid members were officially announced. Once they got in, the only way back out was by killing the boss. The deeper levels had stronger barriers and the lower walls were as tough as steel. He planned to use the Stake of Faith as a wall breaker, an unbreakable pillar. With that settled, Matthias ordered the attack team to kill Lucius by dragging the boss toward him and keeping it away from the door. Those things are deadly monsters that eat humans and spread corruption to anyone they touch. Once it spread, the infected raiders would start turning on each other, giving the traitors the opening they needed. They also got a special drug from their leader that blocks the slave mark so priests cannot force commands on them. Zephyr blows the flute and releases the corrupted monsters early. He figures most of the raiders will live since the healers are there. Realizing he's been spotted, Zephyr hits a hidden switch and turns the concealed wheel in the wall. The mechanism randomly changes the dungeon's layout. Thinking Zephyr is a demon lord worshipper, Lucius tries to trigger the slave mark. He cannot believe Ned betrayed him too. Then Lucius fires a holy beam from his lance straight at Zephyr. It grants him bursts of insane luck during 3 key moments. With that luck, he's hoping to find one that leads straight to the boss room. Yet he also warned that if Ned followed through he'd die. Zephyr stayed calm and said he had a better plan, one that could change everything. The real problem was whether Zephyr could be trusted. He also said he knew someone who could help Ned absorb it safely. Back in the present, Zephyr and Ned race through the shifting dungeon. Matthias shut that down right away. Ned had only asked to test whether Zephyr's story was true, and it was. Olden had already killed Ned's father, and now he meant to keep controlling Ned too. His hatred for both the demon worshippers and the Temple of Light only grows. With the clock running down, they sprint for the boss door. It flies at them, but both dodge and spot a small gap in the boss door. Then a powerful voice echoes through the chamber, demanding to know how they entered without beating the gatekeeper and warning them for disturbing her. Maybe the boy never had the mark, or maybe he found a way to block it. That makes him think demon lord worshippers may be hiding in the raid. The priest gives their names, and when Lucius hears Ned serves under Inquisitor Matthias, his face goes pale. It would have raised his standing with both the demon lord worshippers and the Temple of Light. Lucius gives Matthias one last chance to explain, but Matthias has already chosen he's going to fight. When he sees the sadness on her face, he begins doubting the stories about her cruelty and even wants to comfort her. He cannot believe Ned almost fell for such an obvious illusion. Her face twists into a wicked grin, and she laughs, admitting she meant to devour him. Yet now that the illusion is gone, both of them dodge the strike. She can call up hundreds at once. Even Lucius has struggled against it. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the dungeon, Lucius confronts Matthias for ruining everything, including 10 years of work put into this dungeon. He also knows there is no escape. With no real path left, Matthias decides his only chance is to kill Lucius. He looks calm, but he knows how bad this is. Even so, Matthias has one last edge. To stall for time, Matthias challenges Lucius to a duel while secretly counting down for his men. Lucius activates their slave marks and takes control of them. They'd been friends since they were 12. That past makes Lucius' anger hit even harder. As the bodies drop, bugs marked by the demon lord crawl out of them. Knowing what they are, Lucius crushes one underfoot, making his disgust with Matthias even clearer. The holy priest is shocked that Matthias killed 30 slaves in barely half a minute, but he still trusts Lucius to win. As that truth sinks in, he begins wondering if this unfair balance was decided by the gods from the start. Mies refuses to lose like this. Yet instead of answering, Matthias crazily shows off the stone, stunning everyone there. It turns the user into a demon and is only meant for a last resort. Now fully changed, Matthias feels no regret. The head priest boosts everyone's stats and they all rush the demon. Everyone thinks this will end the fight, but the demon catches the lance in his hand. If even a legendary weapon cannot hurt him, they do not know how to help Lucius anymore. To her horror, the case is gone. He stole it from her earlier as part of the plan. Now they know why the spell pushes the caster's brain too hard. Zephyr draws the Twilight longsword and swings in a hard wide slash. Yet one thing never changes. This is exactly the moment he was waiting for. Remembering that, Ned opens the inventory case in midair and drives the huge stake straight into her. The stake reacts to her dark aura, flaring with power. Once it's spent, it's just a heavy lump of metal. Zephyr does not care about the cost, and the call works. Zephyr's divine item buffs fade too after the long fight. Ned, though, continues staring at the princess's last twitching eye. She cannot come back like that, and once she dies, the gate will open and the gatekeeper will come in. It does not even feel real, and he knows they only pulled it off because of Zephyr's plan. Then loud pounding hits the door as the gatekeeper covered in dark poison slams into it again and again. She seems to react with strong emotion as if sensing her knight. He begins thinking it's because they did not beat the gatekeeper first. Without wasting a second, she opens the dungeon floor and buries the stake deep inside it. A burst of thorns shoots from a portal under them, and Ned barely dodges, but then to his surprise, the princess charges him right away at insane speed. He yanks the line tight and like a cheap Mortal Kombat move snaps. Right before she reaches him, she disappears. The moment she reappears, Zephyr pulls the web again to reel her in. It looks perfect, but to Ned's shock, he's the one who gets hurt. She instantly follows with Dark Hand, draining his mana and stamina. Since the princess depends fully on mana, Zephyr hopes this trick he learned from Altar will stop her cold. Then he draws a rosary he got from White Rose holding 9 sacred temple beads. Zephyr is stunned by how fast she broke free from his mana control. Every shot lands and the blast rocks the whole room. She regrets not sending him with more temple beads. Ned is down too, knocked out on the floor. The princess took over the fight. Right now he is far too weak. Even the divine skills he got before reincarnating, Wall of Iron, Strong Luck, and Revive feel useless here. Maybe the gods never blessed him to help at all. With no way left to win, Zephyr decides to do one last thing. Moments later, an angel descends. He knows that Mark reminds the gods of an old humiliation, which is why they banned it. When the angel appears, the princess's dark aura weakens, buying him a little time. Instead of answering, Zephyr hurls out his own question. Zephyr stays calm and says he will not talk for free. She warns that many gods are already enraged by what he drew. Zephyr pushes further and tells her to do it, but only if she truly has the right to make that call. Some of them want him for their own divine armies. In the end, neither side really wants him dead. Feeling the pressure shift, she grows uneasy and asks what he wants. He tells the ones who would lose out not to sit back. If they want to gamble, now's the time. Interested, she steps in, sending down a bright beam of divine power. As the dust settles, Zephyr rises again, standing before the princess. Elsewhere, the other gods erupt in anger, especially Ursa. He knows Death wants Zephyr badly, and he will not allow that. Then he activates the Sword's Eye spell, calling down a blast of heavenly light that finally brings her down. Zephyr understands Eye does not just damage, it can heal and break curses too. He calmly introduces himself and says he's the one who will carry on her legacy. They loved each other and dreamed of a happy life together, but that they were too innocent to know what was coming. She thanks Zephyr and Ned for freeing her and says she has already lived far past her time. In reply, Zephyr uses communion to show her his memories. Outside the tomb, Lucius is fighting Maz in demon form. He attacks and Lucius lifts his shield to meet it. In that confusion, a demon lord worshipper hiding among them sees his chance. As he draws a knife, dark power begins flowing into the mark on his arm. Those worms are part of Matthias's power drain demon skill, which he uses to make himself stronger. Seeing the danger, Lucius orders everyone to use everything they have to stop it, but it's too late. The Holy One begs Matthias to stop, but Matthias refuses. Normally, holy candidates train until 15, then compete to be chosen. His family could not accept it after pouring everything into his training. Many people were ruined and some even ended their own lives. To him, they are the real villains. That's why he asks for a hard favor. She was the one who placed the dragon heart into Georgios, the first dragon slayer, and now he wants her to do the same for him. 1,000 years ago, Kaisaurus, one of the second strongest dragons, nearly burned the world to the ground. To stop it, the other 11 heroes, including the princess, her knight, and the golden dragon, joined forces against it. The gods cannot enter the human realm, but the demon lord can be summoned, and a group of worshippers is trying to do exactly that again. A lot of people join the demon lord's side for power and profit. He believes he came back to this point so he can finally win. He was brave, and even when she tried to stop him, he still believed the dragon's power could save the world from demons and everyone else trying to ruin it. During a battle at the temple, Georgios was hit by the same dark curse that once took over Kaisaurus. As it happened, the golden dragon arrived and asked the same thing she was thinking. He admitted the curse was never truly removed, and that he only pretended to be their ally to finish his own plan. He even thanked her for placing the dragon heart inside her husband. He raised a huge sword and swung it at the princess. Since then, she has been waiting for someone like Zephyr, someone who might be able to bear that power. He also knows the poison method cannot speed up his growth unless he rests between uses. She says he'll need to use that luck perk one more time. Even so, she decides to speak in a roundabout way. From there, she'll place the dragon heart inside him and change the dungeon so he can escape. He promises to make the world safe, just like Georgios once did. His resolve moves the princess to tears. She tells him to lie down, then begins the transplant. All at once, everything disappears and he ends up in a dark realm. It's Kaisaurus still lingering inside the dragon heart. Burning with rage, Kaisaurus senses the gods on Zephyr and demands to know why they've sent another puppet into his domain. Now, Lucius is the last one still standing, using his holy grail shield to block Mias's non-stop attacks. His reactions are slower and the strain is starting to show. Mias is adapting more and more to demonic power. Lucius's shining lance cannot keep up with him. Just as Matias goes in for the finishing blow, a flash of light cuts in and cancels the attack. An angel appears behind Lucius, surrounded by glowing feathers. Lucius accepts and the angel disappears at once. His whole body shines with holy light so intense that Matias, even in demon form, feels fear. The attack overwhelms Matias and tears his demonic body to pieces. It lets them borrow power from their future angelic selves in exchange for part of their lifespan. They are pushed to use it against strong enemies, and the temple continues putting them in those battles. Yet Matias is still ruled by jealousy over Lucius being chosen. Matias says he was the one everyone expected to be chosen. Back in the boss room, Ned wakes up confused. Once they are recovered, he tells them to find a way out. The energy forms into a pink female figure. Here he is to stay firm and fearless. He remembers who he used to be, and that memory gives him strength. Then, he pulls a giant sword from the ground and declares this his 5th dragon battle in his realm. He's sick of these ancient beings always testing him before giving up their power. The dragon accepts and moves to meet him head-on. He also spots the dungeon boss is so focused on Zephyr that she has completely ignored him. As he thinks about that, she turns to him and tells him to rest. He stares at it in shock, and the princess explains that she pulled it from his body. Ned still cannot understand why the dungeon boss is helping him, but before he can think it through, he falls asleep. Lucius says their best hope is to find the stake since it may be the key to getting out in time. Lucius points out that even if they look like demon lord worshippers, they never join Matias. Maybe they wanted Matias and Lucius to wear each other down so they'd have a better chance to succeed. If he dies, the temple would probably sell off the dungeon and leave it exposed. The worshippers likely plan to buy the dungeon cheap, then send those 2 infiltrators back in with a new raid team. At least that was the plan. It crushes Lucius with ease and slams him to the floor. Then Zephyr blasts through the boss room door. After clearing his throat, he uses a dragon skill and orders the gatekeeper to get on the ground. He cannot understand why a monster that strong is obeying Zephyr. After exactly 10 seconds, the spell ends, and Zephyr confirms he only gets a 10-second window of control. The moment it's free, the skeletal knight grabs its sword, and Zephyr recognizes it at once as Graham. Zephyr meets it with his own sword of light, a holy weapon given to him by the goddess of light. He pours all his holy power into the blade. The blast of radiant light is so massive that even Lucius is shaken. That crushing presence reminds him of the first time he met the golden dragon. Meanwhile, Zephyr thinks back to his fight with Kaisaurus, which lasted 3 full days in his mental realm. So Kaisaurus let him use his power, but warned him to stay careful. He finds 2 relics carrying the princess's magic. The relics also give him control over everything in the tomb. She also leaves one final request. Even so, he's worried the gods may mess with Alter just to squeeze more fun out of his journey. Once everyone gathers again, Lucius steps forward and removes the slave marks from their shoulders, freeing them at last. As the son of the goddess of light, Lucius is supposed to wipe out those worshippers, so he offers them all the help he can. Even so, Ned accepts the alliance. Yet Zephyr cuts in with bad news. That news hits Lucius hard, but he goes on saying he still needs time to adjust before he can draw out more of the dragon heart's power. A hidden treasure room opens, packed with relics the princess left behind. When Zephyr opens it fully, everyone freezes at the sight of glowing crystals floating inside. When Zephyr activates one crystal with the princess's item, Lucius understands that without Zephyr, they never would have reached this place or gotten credit for beating the dungeon boss. They swiftly confirm the gear is incredibly high quality, packed with strong magic and enchantments. The others start choosing gear for themselves too. As they sort through their new equipment, Lucius shares another concern. The only sure method is forcing them to use a skill, which makes Olden almost impossible to catch. With his bloodline, rank, role in the central parish, political neutrality, and ties to Lucius' family, he's nearly untouchable. Ned begins wondering if Lucius does not really trust him and is just dodging the issue. Back at the temple, Olden is busy hypnotizing a bishop. Then Olden tells her the truth. That bug gives them power and continues growing. Olden explains all this because he plans to use Lucius's wife against her husband. He draws a small larva and tries to force it into her son's mouth. The sight makes her sick with fear. He runs to the window and sees Lucius and the head priestess cutting through his guards on the way in. He used the special potion Zephyr gave him, an item that lets him see the worshipper bug inside Demon Lord followers. Olden answers with loud, arrogant laughter and mocks Lucius to his face. Even worse, Matthias is nowhere to be seen, which probably means he was captured and spilled everything. As far as he's concerned, Lucius walks straight back into the trap. Right away, he knows Olden is controlling him. Olden sees them and goes pale. Instead, he said they should gather harder proof against Olden. They came up near Matthias's old hideout, a place the Demon Lord worshippers used for secret meetings. Matthias kept them as insurance in case Olden turned on him, and now Lucius has them. He reminds them that Lucius's wife is his hostage. Then he offers a sick choice. Without waiting for an answer, he begins counting down from 3. Yet before it can settle in, someone stabs Olden from behind. They do not know Ned is wearing the Misty Bracelet, an item that hides its wearer completely. As they fight, Lucius fires a huge lightning beam at Olden. He's shocked to see Ned still alive. Yet now Ned is blocking his path. If Lucius uses Shard of Glory again, it could all be over. Instead of panicking, the pressure only fires him up, and he draws his sword and heads straight for Lucius. Outside the temple, people start showing up for the healing rituals, but the guards stop them and claim knights are training inside. Since then, she has mostly stayed in the slave quarters to be safe. Inside, the head priests and priestesses are fighting off wave after wave of Demon Lord worshippers. If that news spreads, rival groups in the temple will use it to attack them. To their surprise, the night is starting to wear down. The Golden Knight tries to slip past the spear and getting close. Lucius confirms it, saying the twin brothers are among the strongest fighters on the continent, so beating them takes more than brute force. Even so, Lucius takes control of the fight as he dodges and slams the knight with his golden arm. Watching from below, the head priests think Lucius won easily, but when he turns around, it's obvious he's badly hurt too. The mirror effect only works when he hits Lucius' body directly, and it only sends back half the damage. In an instant, he appears behind Lucius and gets ready to land a killing blow. Even while wounded, the knight continues receiving orders from the Queen Bug. Back at the main building, Lucius and the head priests reveal their plan. Split them apart and take them down one by one. He told the master that his mind control powers would let him quietly take over the third parish temple and guard the dragon heart there without moving it. He begins to suspect the master set him up to die once he'd outlived his use. Yet his bigger fear is the number of enemies he's made. Moments later, pain tears through his body. Then, the cloaked helper by the carriage pulls back his hood, and it's Zephyr. He is not the real Twin Knight, just a normal warrior in disguise. He cannot understand why the poison is stopping his healing, so he offers anything he can, hoping to stall until help arrives. 12 hours earlier at dawn, he, Lucius, and the priests identified the Twin Knight as a Demon Lord worshipper and killed him. In the end, another of Jinyang's disciples tracked him down and killed him. All of it led back to Olden schemes and betrayal. Yet to Zephyr's surprise, the remains are way too small. A twisted mass of slithering worms. CP understands Olden must have left part of his body behind as a decoy, letting him transform in secret. Calling Zephyr's resistance a mistake, Olden slams his huge fist into the ground and sends a violent shockwave through the forest. As he turns to go, Lucius's wife worries, but Ned assures her he'll handle it without one. As he moves, memories of his father's death come flooding back, hardening his resolve to get revenge on the monster Olden and bring down everyone tied to him. Lucius spots the knight is getting nervous after being stalled for so long, and he calls to the head priest who uses battle light. To the priestess's surprise, the support spell boosts her summon spirit too. Sure, their slower attacks cannot hurt him. His lance shining with holy power. He tries to counter but his strike misses. The head priest instantly understands the knight had not only been aiming at Lucius. Lucius rushes to help the bishop, but he cannot make it in time. A third of his bug was burned away, so he heads for Olden, hoping to be restored. Years ago the twin knights joined Olden after their older sister took the back then. Now feeling grateful and indebted, the knight runs to Olden determined to keep him alive. As Ned lands, the twin knight recognizes Janang's disciple and demands to know why he's interfering. Now recovered, he hurls off his broken armor and tells Ned to move. He admits Ned is fast and likely using a cloaking skill, so he stays careful, but he's still sure no one can beat him head-on. That weapon was their shared symbol, a holy gift from Olden. That alone is enough to turn the twin knight into a rabid beast ready to kill him. He can harden himself like metal and even spit acidic fluid from the bugs at his target. Yet even after being chopped apart, those pieces turn into weapons and attack Zephyr from every side. In this demon form, he looks almost immortal and barely reacts to the damage. He admits he likes Zephyr power and plans to plant a bug in him to make him a servant. At last, the demon reshapes his arm into a sword and brings it down on Zephyr. The master gave him a marked bug and told him to raise it. He stops the demon's arm with one bare hand. He split them up on purpose so Ned could get his revenge. Since Olden is a real threat, Zephyr decides he's the perfect test. The boy reaches for him with enhanced dragon arms and Olden turns to flee. For Zephyr, this is only the start. The key to beating this knight was tied to Ned himself. He pushed their skills even further by giving them the twin blades, weapons that helped them master a special fighting style. One attack flowed right into the next, creating a non-stop storm of sword strikes. Since Ned already understands floating cloud, he can sync with the twin knight's sword and create an eclipse-like counter. When the moment comes, he copies the technique perfectly, and the knight jumps back in shock. Olden cries for help again, but the knight ignores it. Zephyr had warned him the knight would keep fighting instead of helping Olden, and that they had to stop him from reaching Olden before he could escape or recover. In one flash, he unleashes a slash that seems to split Ned in half, but it's only an illusion. He blocks it and Ned's blade sticks to his. Then he forces him down, trying to finish him while Ned holds the blade back with everything he has left. That memory gives him one last burst of power. Blind and unable to see, he tries to track Ned by feel. With him gone, the title of strongest warrior in the land is left empty. They broke apart the falling structure in time and used defense spells to soften the impact. As Lucius looks over everyone, his face fills with relief when he sees his family returning with Ned and Zephyr. Over the next few days, everyone stays busy caring for the wounded and arresting the remaining worshippers from the central parish. They also save the bishop, who still cannot believe everything that happened and is recovering from internal injuries. Zephyr and Ned are treated like heroes, and the bishop thanks them in person. When the bishop looks to Ned, he stays calm. Then Zephyr hands over everything they pulled from Olden, hitting out locations, plans, and the names of worshippers across the region. Worse, the people behind it are from the Eastern Union. The East began falling apart financially and even had to sell land to the West. They've built nests in the continent's biggest farming region and taken over the main center, leaving the South to starve. The dragons may be part of a bigger scheme. To fix this, the dragons have to die. The bishop is not convinced and asks how two people could kill a dragon. This likely will not be the last attack and someone has to protect their home. He also promises that he and the bishop will each give half their temple offerings to fund the mission. After thinking it over, Lucius accepts and vows to back them however he can on the dragon hunt. A harsh, unnatural light begins shining from inside. Then it asks if Zephyr and Ned were the ones who killed him. Before anyone can respond, purple light bursts from the chamber and destroys the cage. Their weapons are being repaired, and they are in no shape for another fight, but the leader's attention goes straight to the dragon heart energy coming from Zir. In his past life, the worshipper's leader never cared about the dragon heart and stayed hidden behind a double life. Now that the master has shown up early, everything feels wrong. Even so, Lucius continues some hope because he already has the Shard of Glory spell. Yet right as the attack lands, the master changes form. The spell is called Ancient Dragon Shadow. As he gets ready to go, he hurls several dark curses at Ned and Lucius. Even the bishop cannot stop the curses from taking over. The Sword of Light, a weapon that needs incredible stats and the Goddess of Light's approval. Zephyr is only using it because he stacked 2 buff spells, letting him hold the sword for 10 seconds without the goddess's permission. Yet Mushi remembers something from his past life. So he figures this master is acting alone, not under the Demon Lord's orders. Zephyr answers with a challenge. If Zephyr wins, he'll expose the master's real identity in front of everyone. So the idea that Zephyr knows sounds impossible. Feeling the tension rise, Zephyr warns him not to do anything reckless or things will only get worse. Everyone can see the coin is landing on tails except for Bishop. What surprises them is not the result. Yet this is not a normal coin toss. Both use magic during the flip. It's decided the instant the hand opens. Zephyr fights against it, knowing that if he gives in now, he loses. Even under that pressure, Zephyr breaks free and sends the coin flying high. He slams the coin out of the air with explosive force, driving it into the ground hard enough to leave a crater. One side heads, the other tails. Soon afterward, over tea, Ned tells Priestess Rose everything. He now carries an oath bond skill that stops him from directly revealing anything about the Demon Lord worshippers until their next rematch. Just as he's about to give them a hint, the scene shifts to the master in a royal palace carrying a big bouquet of flowers. For all his bold talk and open hate, the boy stayed silent. He calls her Alter and gives her flowers for her 20th birthday. Back at the third parish, Lucius continues turning over Zephyr's hints, all pointing to the master being someone with terrifying power. The master and his followers are still out there. Meanwhile, as Zephyr gathers his mana, the master worshipper's sudden move continues bothering him. When someone acts unlike themselves, it can mean time was changed by someone or something. Whatever the answer is, Zephyr plans to find it. The angel gave it to him when he briefly interfered with the gods. Thinking back on that, he gets dressed and activates the key. C wonders if she'll hand out more benefits like she did with the key. That answer annoys him, and he swiftly asks why he was really called here. If he ever tries to blackmail them again, all his perks will be taken away. Even so, he has no plan to test the gods again. The angel says he already got one. From now on, he must carry out divine requests. The head priest arrives with Lucius to apologize for secretly sending them out the back, but Zephyr says there is no need. Zephyr uses a cloaking bracelet, but they still avoid attention and leave through the rear entrance. After they depart, the Holy One knows he has to fool everyone into thinking he now has the dragon heart, so no one focuses on Zephyr. In the dungeon boss room, the princess and her knight spirit decide to rest too. As Zephyr continues his journey, Alter gets a letter from Lucius, her cousin, wishing her a happy birthday. Then a noise breaks out outside. Lucius says this is the one who will help her. He hands the butler a sealed letter saying it's from Lucius, the Holy One of Light. He remembers Lucius trusted the fortress's master to help them, but quietly wonders if the princess will really support their dragon raid. Ned only remembers seeing her in royal parades as a child, and the rumors say she wasted her huge talent, which makes him doubt she'll get involved. Ned first thinks they are ordinary troublemakers, but swiftly sees they are much stronger than that. Alter Justin was known for her beauty, talent, royal blood, and unbelievable luck. To many nobles, marrying her meant grabbing power. She had no interest in the weak. Now her elite guard Aelia continues that tradition going. The butler explains that many are hired fighters standing in for the real suitors, and if one even lands a hit on Aelia, the princess will grant a meeting. The problem is they are up against one of the 10 strongest people on the continent. Probably because he met her later in his past life. Zephyr spots the blue uniform with a golden bird and recognizes him as a priest from the Sky Temple, second only to the Temple of Light. Rather than argue, Zephyr shows Lucius's sealed letter and says the matter is urgent. Then he hears nearby priests talking about Lucius. His lover first, then his temple, and finally the investors. He cannot believe such stupid gossip still spreads through the capital. He understands the Temple of Light and Sky Temple do not get along, but Alter has nothing to do with that. Then he gestures at the other priests and mocks them, saying they've waited days just to lose, so they might as well come at him now. The butler reassures him and apologizes for not stopping it sooner. He bows and kisses her hand. He recommended them as temple knights, but also told her to hear the details from him himself. He wonders if she recognizes him or if they've met before. For now, she uses sensing magic to judge people and search for allies she can trust against the growing threat of the Demon Lord worshippers. At first, he only wanted a vague kind of success, then revenge for Ned, his teacher. It was never really about marriage. With the kingdom in danger, even Alter has limits. Zephyr decides showing his strength will be quicker than explaining it. He asks Ophelia if she's ever crossed blades with him. Ophelia steps in with her sword and says she'll try to land 3 hits. One careless move could cost her, so she stays cautious. On the third try, her grip begins to slip and Zephyr is without warning behind her, lightly tapping her shoulder. His defense and combat sense are on another level. It'll just draw the Demon Lord worshippers back. If she secures even 1 or 2 mountains, she can pull the enemy's focus during the coming dungeon raid. Zephyr says she can reward him however she thinks is fair, but his real need is healers. He says that depends on her support, then hands her a crystal. Zephyr knows that old media line has long been lost. He believes that if Alter absorbs it, her powers will fully wake up and she'll be able to properly stabilize the dragon heart for him. As he leaves, Zephyr thinks this first meeting went much better than it did in his past life. Certain of himself, he plans to stay back and let her curiosity pull her to him. By skill alone he does fit what Alter needs. Alter agrees the dragon heart has not fully settled in him yet, but she's sure he'll become much stronger. Then again, the woman was such a great sorceress that Alter would not be shocked if she were still alive in her tomb. He might be exactly what her plans need. Whenever she touches someone, she feels warmth or cold that reveals their nature. Far away, Alfred, second in command of the Demon Lord worshippers, kneels before their leader and answers the summons, waiting for orders. She reminds Alfred that her apostles have freedom, but the final mission must be completed no matter what. Alfred accepts in silence, ashamed she let her lead her down before. Meanwhile, Alter thinks about how well things have gone. She thinks about the spell book she's wanted for so long. She apologized for not teaching more and trusted Alter to finish the spell and defeat the leader of the TARDIS worshippers. Pieces of magical knowledge float around her like countless stars. Elsewhere, Zephyr beats Ned in a game, which means Zephyr will go to the upcoming party. Ned offers him a special bracelet, but he refuses at first. As a pair, they hide the wearer so well that only a legendary detection skill could notice them. He hardly ever meets Southerners, and he'd remember someone with that kind of presence. He checks the potion of true sight, which reveals the bug-like mark hidden inside every worshipper. Then Zephyr gets ready to use transfiguration, an Eastern skill that changes the face through muscle control and expression. A real master of disguise can fool someone they just spoke to, then disappear like nothing happened. From the crowd, he understands Alter's suitors are not ordinary men. Essentially VIPs who expect special treatment. Around the room, people gossip about the princess. Another says beauty is not the half of it. Yet instead of acting like one, she hurls grand parties and continues traveling. His brother-in-law was there as an investor and was told to leave town until the raid ended, but he still has not been let back in. The information is being tightly controlled. Impressed, the man adds that Zephyr might also be the one who beat the priests from the Sky Temple. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the fortress, Ned kills a guard in the hallway and notes that the east building is clear. Soon afterward, he climbs to the roof and takes in how huge the fortress is. Then an old memory hits him. He imagines she would have been married by now, maybe with children like Claudia, if not for the typhoon that day. Even so, he reminds himself he's wearing both mist bracelets. She tells him not to be nervous and says she felt something strange nearby. Ned asks how long she's been following him. He invites her to check for herself and apologizes for acting without permission, arguing that stopping the cult came first. She explains that the princess has spent a long time preparing for the dragon raid and gathered only the finest warriors. Ned has not, so she pushes him to prove himself. She finds burn marks and traces of demonic change. Looking over the battlefield, she also spots signs of Dragon King style and decides one of Jinra's disciples was involved. She tastes it and instantly knows it's a deadly poison that should not be there. She thinks about how the third parish has sealed off all traffic with a barrier that even blocks detection skills. Remembering Polaris said only 2 or 3 people in the world can implant a dragon heart. If so, they will not care about investors or complaints from the central parish. Now, the biggest question is simple. Then a strange woman without warning appears. When they strike, the woman counters with lightning palm that confirms it for Alfred. The woman meanwhile's already annoyed. For a moment, he wonders if he's being left out of the dragon raid because he's only on Alia's level. Her next attack lands on a target that without warning breaks into dust. He used the crow's cloak, which makes a manacone and moves the real user nearby. Ned knows the stories about her strength, and he's sure she still has not gone all out. Ophelia guesses his hidden ace is Dragon King style and asks if that's true. Elsewhere, the strange woman, one of the master's shadow disciples, stops by a lake for a drink after escaping. She also saw the second-in-command sneaking around the place where it all happened. She's one of Jinrayang's top disciples and a master of hiding herself. She adds that Zephyr shares some of those traits too, but the princess personally vouched for him. Ned, though, still does not get what she's trying to say. As Ned looks into things, Olden apologizes for the past and claims he was only obeying the temple's orders, never trying to hurt him. Balding goes on saying Ned cannot understand how cruel those times were. He insists he saved Ned from that life and made him what he is, but Ned attacks anyway. Back then, Olden sounded insane, so Ned ignored him. Then Olia's warning comes back to him. She looks so much like him that they could have been brother and sister. Meanwhile, a brown-haired girl plays violin in the ballroom. The man shakes Zephyr's hand and suggests they meet again tomorrow for a drink, and he agrees. Zephyr, he thinks, is rare, strong, sly, and smart. That tells the man Lucius did not just happen to find him, he chose him. This man is Philip, leader of the Pilgrim Merchantry. If they lose their money, they lose everything. They cannot let someone that valuable slip away. At least Brina, chief healer of the Temple Knights in Lindell's second parish, agrees. Everything he knows comes from what he lived through in his past life. In the past, Philip grew rich trading spices with the East and became known as a supporter of Alder, the so-called payback princess. A memory shows Philip advising Alder. So, he urges her to act like she's wasting time on luxury while secretly building power and promises to fund it. In his past life, after Ned ran off with the dragon heart, the shadow disciple called the Smiling Woman killed Philip. So Zephyr sets 2 new goals. When he walks into the room, he assumes Ned is back, but he freezes in surprise. The moment Ned looks up, Zephyr flinches and steps back before catching himself. He does not remember Ned ever talking about his sister. Now he's heard she's alive, and worse, that she's the shadow disciple of Dragon King style. For a second he wonders if Alter is behind this, then rejects it. Zephyr remembers the Smiling Woman once grabbing his shirt and demanding to know who taught him that move. Her adoptive parents found her on the shore, and her master saw right away that she had the rare warrior's bone structure. Even as his enemy, she told him all of that. That makes him suspect Gingering and Olden worked together to wipe out Ned's family, take someone with that gift, and throw them away when they were done. He has no reason to think Oilia is lying, but what she said is hard to accept. Now he does not know if he can trust anyone. Needing some kind of answer, he without warning hurls the knife and demands one real reason to trust Zephyr. After stealing the dragon heart and crossing paths with the Silver Knight, Ned understood something far worse was coming. Zephyr explains how that led him to the Canyon of Oblivion, one of the 8 deadliest quests where his master's son abandoned him and the dragon heart was lost. With Ned injured and Zephyr still green, they learned the Dragon King style together, because it was the only way either of them would survive the canyon. Even then, he still could not stop the end of the world or save anyone. He remembers Ned's plan in that old life. Yet in the end, they had to leave the cave earlier than planned. Ned shoved him away to keep him alive, giving up the revenge he'd waited for to save someone who was nobody back then. Using the last of his strength, he mixed it with magic and struck with his spear. It sounds impossible, yet it also explains too much. Zephyr admits it sounds crazy but insists it's the truth. He also knows he first came to Ned with lies. Ned holds his head and thinks revenge was not the only thing that set him on this path. Then his master took him in, gave him a new name and a reason to keep going. So he accepted every brutal task. Trusting that kind of person felt natural. Ned admits he used to hate himself, thinking he'd wrecked his own life. He thinks he really picked one hell of a disciple, a hero who came back in time to save the world. This time they'll face it together. Ned agrees to keep it secret. The next morning, Zephyr is called to a meeting with Philip's group. Ned catches that word unavailable and quietly wonders why she's absent. Unlike normal spellbooks, crystal ones send their contents straight into the user's mind that forces the body into a deep sleep, and stronger spells keep them out longer. Her recovery depends on how fast she can take in the magic. The next few days fly by as everyone gets ready for the Blue Dragon raid. He tells her not to make it long, and she promises she will not. Then, Elise locks him in magical chains so he will not move, warning that if he does, she'll have to start over. Watching this, Ned gets uncomfortable and without warning claims he has something important to do, but Philip stops him, reminding him every party member needs a health check before the raid. Hearing that, Zephyr at once understands Alter must be awake. She calmly greets them while Zephyr watches her closely, wondering if she knows anything about Ned. She explained that Alder now had the basic knowledge of median magic. Princess Overmind added that no one, not even her, had ever reached level 8. If that happened, a gate to the stars would open, and Alder agreed to aim for it. Before disappearing, she left one last message. As she reaches up and tries to sit, a priestess gently tells her to take it easy. She dimly recalls someone saying something important, but the memory slips away. Alter greets him and Ned, apologizing for meeting them while still in her pajamas because of her condition. He suspects Alter may have gained a communion skill, the kind that lets someone rid memories through touch like other princesses can. So he steps forward and offers her his hand. That skill is for much higher levels, and she's only at level 3. Then she gets to the real issue, the plan from a week ago. She tells him to explain his plan. Then, stunning everyone, he draws hundreds of strategy scrolls. Zephyr's group heads out with knights and healers from Lindell, carrying a silver key and a full inventory. On the road, Zephyr thinks the demon lord worshippers are probably turning on each other by now. Important people are likely still trying to understand why Lucius shut himself away. First comes the Blue Dragon raid and the alliance they need for now. Ned warned him not to push too hard. Right now, she barely knows him. Zephyr knows Ned is right. Maybe Lucius being the one who introduced them helped. As they keep moving, Edwin says they've reached the plains of Danakil, the biggest farming region on the continent. That idea leaves everyone impressed until they open the carriage window. They get out and Ned quietly says it's worse than he expected. Philip Pilgrim explains the damage began 3 years ago when the Blue Dragon first showed up. Looking over the area, Zephyr figures the last 20% will not survive another year. He knows they are almost out of time. Philip says they've brought food and asks how things are inside. She suggests staying here to regroup and sort everything out. Grimes is a knight from the Lord's castle. Clear proof the blue dragon's poison has spread through his body. Whether it came from poison water or a creature from the dragon's nest, the result is the same. Then he asks how safe the station is since they'll soon be working with these soldiers. He remembers Fade only finishing these poisons near the end of his last life, since the materials were so rare. It was made to melt flesh from the inside, but with careful use and healing magic, it can destroy other poisons and swiftly restore the body. Watching all this, Alter reflects on poison itself. Moments later, Regulus Danakil arrives with several knights. He greets Philip Pilgrim warmly, and Philip greets him back. He admits someone has fooled him. Regulus says he placed spies in the third parish. To him that sounds very suspicious. Before answering, Regulus without warning changes direction and orders the aid station closed, but before he can finish, a scream comes from a nearby house. The sight alarms him at once. Before things can get worse, Alia charges in and kicks Regulus, bringing him to a stop. Then Alter steps forward and says she heard everything through mana perception. The letter to his father was not a merchant asking for help, but a royal command. He asks how he could ever repay saving his life. Zephyr accepts it and notes to himself that Regulus owns up to his mistakes, which means he may not be a problem after all. Even so, he always spotted what others missed, and that helped his team beat even the top groups, including hers. She declares that Lord Zephyr received an oracle from the goddess Arya, and was chosen to save the Holy One and the whole world from a coming disaster. She says their raid party had become exposed to demon lord worshippers. With that, she orders everyone to follow Zephyr as if they were obeying the goddess herself. Zephyr, meanwhile, has to fight back a laugh. While they stay wrapped up in their own moment, a glasses-wearing mage watches them from nearby. In a few days, it will spread again unless they find a real cure. At last, the group reaches the Great Fall Forest of Elfin, a huge untouched land in northwestern Alsen. Alter explains that the forest feels different because man is packed so densely there. The angel once told him it could hold people too, but she also warned him what happened last time. Curious, Alter asks why being inside the Silver Key would break someone's mind. Alter says the forest town nearby once had around 50 people from Danakil. She says they should head there and Zephyr agrees. Alter remembers the last message from the town came 2 days ago by carrier pigeon while they were still at the aid station. Regulus also believes their current force can handle things. Yet when things got truly bad, that elf always shared more. Ned gives a quick nod and goes ahead. Now for some reason it's been moved here. In 2 days the town could easily have fallen. Before the creature can answer, Alter gets off her horse and tells everyone to hold. She says she came in peace and wants to talk. He reminds them that her brother once offered a truce. That agreement was supposed to begin a quiet age sealed with a rare item as proof of trust. As the roots start moving, everyone prepares for battle. For over 20 years, they've lived in Elfin, using the forest's life force to shape special magic and turn the whole land into a living fortress. Alter clearly is not pleased, but then a strange light shoots from the bushes toward her. Seeing the beam hit the princess, the elves start cheering and mocking her. The nearby warriors are stunned by how strong the barrier is and even praise the healer who helped make it. She nods, thankful he moved so fast, then wonders if the gatekeeper elves are only obeying orders. With his team behind him, he steps forward and uses dragon tongue to order the elves to open the gate. Zephyr rushes in, knocks out 2 guards, and grabs a young-looking elf girl. He jokes that sometimes people talk better after a hit, but she angrily tells him to let go. He hurls the girl aside and defends himself. It's another elf with a bow. Hearing the girl's words, Dariel calmly states the distance to his target, 0.63 mi, and readies a shot. Daisy reacts at once and uses Gree's eye to send out long-range scouting golems to help Zephyr, plus another to track the source of the attack. It's an arrow fired from more than half a mile away with terrifying accuracy. The little elf girl does not believe he blocked it on purpose, but the wound makes her think he will not last much longer. Now his arrows move 3 times faster and hit far harder. It takes too long and dodging is dangerous since the shock waves could hit his allies. To most people, Zephyr looks almost slow, like his swing is careless, but it all happens in less than a second. That strike slams into the meteor and triggers a huge explosion. Watching Zephyr stop the attack, the little elf girl can hardly believe it. A memory flashes through her mind, crying beside her mother's bed over everything her family lost. They will not fight anymore, she says, then asks Zephyr if he's really human or something else. Zephyr has already chosen to help. Grimes is not fully recovered, and moving around will not help, but he insisted on coming to prove the antidote worked. To Regulus. The elf leader introduces himself as Hiron, a high elf elder, then points out the 2 high elves, Zephyr fought, Dariel on his left and Shira. She seems more grown up now. Maybe she's near a growth phase though. Meeting someone who might truly help feels like a blessing since their truce with Prince Polaris. The first one risked everything to enter the forest and save the elves from deadly poison. Yet Heron explains that Fade came looking for lost companions. They once carried the healing power of the Lake of Vitality through the whole forest. Then the blue dragon nested in the lake. Now the corruption threatens both the elves and nearby human lands. He stressed that winning the elves' support was key, even if he was not sure they would agree. Edwin calmly said he was not doubting her abilities. Yet to him, the elves were not the real problem. Yet near the border, it's different. As time passed, that fear turned into open hatred. Since that water fed Danakil's fields, they said the land was theirs too. The elves were driven back and the humans secured a truce. That was when the Lord of Danakil and Regulus Danakil understood they had to work with the elves to fix it. Edwin admitted a raid now might be too early. To her, this was the best time to act. Back in the present, while treating a poisoned elf, Zephyr remembers a small favor he once did for one of his old guildmates. When he tells it, Elder Hiran Kira and Dariel seem to trust him a bit more. Zephyr says the poison he used is much rarer. That makes him wonder how close Key is to Fade because she talks like she knows him well. Zephyr says he cannot tell her. Then Dariel reveals that Fade came here a year ago. That irritates Dariel, so he casually lifts Kira up and calls her out while the others watch them argue. For the past year, the poisoned elves have survived only because of the tiny doses of lethal poison Fade left behind. To him, Zephyr's arrival feels like a miracle. He can not only counter the dragon's poison, but he may even be as strong as Dariel or stronger. 3 years earlier, a powerful elf woman had gotten hold of the last sealed box hidden in the 12 towers. He reminded her that the queen had risked everything to hold back the blue dragon and save them. She asked him to look around and say if this forest looked like victory. A true queen, she said, would have used mind control on traitors from the start. Even after losing the war and destroying towers, they escaped with sealed boxes. As she left, she told Heron to enjoy ruling a kingdom with no future. Left alone, Elder Hiran admits he did not stay out of loyalty to the queen. He once thought about raising Dariel as an ally since the young elf has real talent. If he learned Hiran meant to leave once he got a sealed box, he'd likely throw him in prison at once. He says the dragon must die not just for the elves, but for humans too. Only a few capable fighters are left, and even they are barely hanging on. Outwardly, he supports the alliance while hiding what he really wants. Hiram believes he can persuade him to retrieve it, and once he has it, he'll finally have the power to take the throne and become king. Now that their poisoned people have been saved, more elves are starting to support the alliance too. His son says she has protected them since ancient times. Not far away, Milia of the Magic Tower is getting more and more annoyed. Worse still, she cannot stand Altar. She acts excited about turning the mountains into farmland, then asks to be excused so she can keep working. Yet hidden in the crowd are Demon Lord worshippers in disguise, ready to ruin the project. Luckily, the Demon Lord worshippers seem busy with their own troubles, especially with one seat among the 12 apostles still empty. Yet the poison has damaged it. The elves fear for their village. His mother took the worst of it and has been like that for 3 years, so they have to hold the line. After the attack is stopped, Dariel invites Zephyr to a meeting to thank him for helping defend the village and control the poison. Yet even with that gratitude, Dariel explains that the 2 ingredients he asked for are vital to protecting the village from more contamination, so he cannot give them up. Zephyr says that once his mother is cured, he'll bring back both the lake and the tree of life. To drive it home, Zephyr flips him off and says he'll kill the dragon too, just like he promised. He fires back that this is their only chance. He steps in and tells Dariel to wake up. Dariel demands they settle it with a fight. Then both of them disappear into the dust. It still cannot break through Zephyr Dragon's scales. Then, to everyone's shock, he snaps Dariel's bow in half and calls it worthless. Kiara begins tearing up too, saying they cannot just give up the bow when they are already low on firepower. Elise checks the bow and confirms it. Dariel calmly says 50 gold would be cheap. For a second, Dariel wonders if he means the branch from the Tree of Life. Soon afterward in the main hall, Dariel grants Zephyr request and gives him a cup of water of vitality along with a young branch from the Tree of Life. Just before he drinks it, Dariel reminds him this is the last cup left. Zephyr confidently reassures them, then downs the water of vitality in one gulp. In that state, he instantly uses dragonification and mana flow. The whole area around the dragon is covered in poison, and at the center waits the beast itself, the Dragon King of Beasts. To have any shot, he has to strengthen his dragon heart, and this water is the key. So, she swiftly casts Morai, a spell named after the 3 goddesses of fate to steady Zephyr's mana while he meditates. As the fusion begins, Zephyr's body jolts from the surge and the strain begins cracking him apart. Meanwhile, he pushes past the dragon heart's usual 5% limit. The fusion begins to break down. Beside him, Ned helps guide the wild power surging through his body. When it clears, Dariel can only stare as Zephyr stands there as a half-dragon. It's still nowhere near his past life strength, but he's getting closer. Then to everyone's shock, he bites down on it and says he'll repay them by getting material for Dariel's weapon. He explains that the scale can be turned into dragon's skin, strong enough for a bow and arrows that can pierce a dragon's hide. From there, the elven blacksmith drops mana stones into a boiling pot and explains they'll need extra high-grade materials with the main ones to make a top-tier weapon. Once everything is carefully prepared, the materials are finally ready. That boost helps Zephyr's dragonification, letting him control his power better. When the fusion finishes, a huge blast erupts from the center. Time passes and only 2 weeks are left before the raid. Ned is put in charge of training. Zephyr also warns them how rough the mission will be. They also collect mana stones to build golems, living shields for the deadly march ahead. Those circles work as traps, protect the base, and create short-term safe zones. She says she's already set several of them along the cleared routes. Even after upgrading dragonification, he can only hold the form for 10 minutes, which is not enough. He knows if he does not push himself now, he'll lose to the dragon. He also knows he needs more strength, not just to fight, but to make more weapons for the raid. The worn-out soldiers head off to rest, while Zephyr and his closest allies sit in their tent and quietly eat thick hot steaks. When he's done, Zephyr stands up quietly and leaves the tent. She snaps that she never agreed to that, but Ned drags her toward training anyway, and refuses to let her slip away. Ever since he showed up, things that once felt impossible have began happening. Even the other parishes refused to help. So in the end, all she had was her small team. People might call that luck or fate, but Alder never bought into either one. He goes still, then understands she used the Kiss of Darkness, a spell that makes the target tell the truth. At first, she did not trust him and kept watching him in secret, but he kept doing exactly what he promised. Even so, one thing still bothers her. If he has another goal he never shared, now is the time to say it. Then he adds that everything he's done was for her. Alder goes stiff, torn between panic and disbelief. As a user of median magic, she'd know right away if it worked. He knew she'd use the spell someday, and it was the only way to make her believe him until she learns communion. The silence hangs between them until Zephyr gently pulls her in and kisses her. Daisy calmly reminds her that even if Lord Danakil hired them, their true employer is Princess Alder. She says it's been that way since their academy days. Daisy listens in silence, though she knows Alder has actually handled things pretty well so far. Even so, she needs to calm her down before she does something stupid. From her point of view, Milia does. Her whole mood changes and she heads back to work with fresh focus. After they leave, he walks up to the golems and begins writing new orders onto their control plates. They all know what this means. The group begins chanting, praying, and pouring their power into their roles. She remembers the bludgeon ahead and the pain of seeing it with her own eyes. Thinking of that, Alter draws on her star power and sends her magic to strengthen Zephyr. A bright flash without warning bursts across the field and Zephyr emerges in full dragonification. Healers and ranged fighters like Milia and Dariel stay in the backline along with support units like Alter and the other mages. The moment it begins, he jumps skyward and rushes ahead. The closer he gets to the lake, the thicker the poison fog becomes. Right now, he's the only one who can. As he pushes on, Zephyr understands he's close to the lake and cannot waste time on weak monsters. He places one every 100 meters that creates a mana road, letting magic travel from the main camp to the front, even if it arrives at half strength. The magic tower thought it cost too much. She sends out a Cyclops to scout with Zephyr, which gives her hope they should be able to share live attack coordinates with it. Back then, the dragon growled the instant it sensed anyone nearby. They remember Zephyr wondering before why a territorial dragon would stay still like this, in a forest full of intruders. Zephyr gets close and feels relieved. This dragon is not really poison type. A creature like that resting in a healing lake should not be poisoning everything around it. The knights watching from a distance are stunned, then even more shocked when Zephyr forces its jaws open from the inside with both hands. As he forces the jaws apart, he bites down on the black dragon chain and locks it around the dragon's mouth. That's why he chose to strike now while it's weakened. The instant the dragon feels the restraint, it lets out a deafening cry and thrashes hard enough to shake the ground. Yet even with his dragon heart running at 19 output, the dragon still fights back harder than he expected. Then one brief slip in focus costs him. From the rear, everyone watches in horror. Now it's aimed straight at Zephyr. Then both she and the dragon notice something strange. That's because Zephyr already used his silver key, which lets him jump between the same in and out point. Zephyr drives a thunder palm straight into the beast and lightning tears through its body from the inside. He figures those glands are done for at least 10 minutes, so this is their best chance to push in. Meanwhile, Dariel readies his dragon arrows, coats them in venom, and fires. The team bursts into cheers with many praising Dariel's aim and strength. He looks younger than Dariel, yet talks like someone who's fought through endless wars. He feels they mean more than this raid. Dariel stays calm and continues watching. Watching his focus, Kira understands Dariel is finally finding his footing again like he once did before. He dreamed of something else, but now his resolve is coming back. Something unseen is holding him in place. The mana road is shifting and its flow is changing. He had explained that the tomestones do not just extend spell range. That will block the return fire, but it also cuts their own attack power. The moment they do, a huge shockwave rips across the field. The dragon has activated its unique trait, telekinesis. In simple terms, that means pure destruction. He has only 20 minutes of dragonification left and the real battle is starting now. He also said the same thing affects the dragon. Once they hurt the creature enough to snap it out of that haze, its true powers come out and the real fight begins. The dragon locks onto the sword and its eyes go wide. Alter and the mages successfully redirect the mana roads, cutting off the dragon's reflected attacks. Even so, everyone begins to grasp a brutal truth. He's the only one who can still use the mana road to land solid hits. Anything those strikes touch gets wiped out. While reading the pattern, the dragon without warning hurls out a nasty surprise attack. Zephyr fires off electric acceleration and slips away. Hurt, the beast roars and dives into the lake. The dive turns the lake and violent waves spread out. The rear support mages at once switch targets, strengthening the golems and taking down the new threats. Knowing those monsters could disrupt Zephyr's fight. Watching quietly, Hiran knows his sabotage is finally kicking in. Alter looks at where it would have landed and understands Dariel just saved the entire rear squad. She warns everyone to stay sharp. Right then, a huge beast appears in the distance. Back then they lost both the Black Dragon's heart and Lucius the Holy One. Danakil's farmland was poisoned beyond repair, turning the whole operation into a disaster. To Zephyr, becoming a temple knight was the only way to get revenge and close the gap with Olden. Elsewhere, Matthias and Olden drank tea, spoke about the princess's failure, and noted that holding troops back from the Great Forest had been a brilliant move. The princess lost soldiers, resources, and much of her standing. Olden expected a big reward once it was done. He understands the traps set for them and refuses to let his enemies control the outcome. The large golem at base can send out footage from his side, but he needs to know what's happening back at camp. Back in the fight, the group is battling the spawned monsters, including the giant boss. He says only 24, barely enough for the dragon with none to waste on the other monsters. Zephyr can tell Kiara and Dariel work well together and the whole team is doing a solid job. Whether it's dozens or hundreds, he plans to shoot down every last one. Then it without warning disappears, leaving the knights frozen in shock. The troops rush to hold the line, but the monsters hit first, then the creature gets a surprise of its own. Calm as ever, she says it stands too straight to be one of their own kind. Princess Alter gave him that job herself. Regulus knows how important that is, but hearing his knights scream outside makes doing nothing almost unbearable. It creates a strong barrier around one building, but he cannot leave while it's active. Regulus tells himself this duty belongs to him. The voice sounds like Princess Alter. To his shock, Elder Heron is standing there for a second. As Heron spits out the acorn, he sets off a blinding flash. That's all the time Heron needs, already boosted by an acceleration spell to snatch the fragment of the Tree of Life branch. Meanwhile, Heron confirms the infiltration worked and tells his disguise group to hurry. Elsewhere, Princess Alter stays calm as she contacts Zephyr. Then he wonders if a reward might help. He cuts the call and gets moving. While his focus shifts for a second, the dragon bursts out of the water and lunges. Next, he activates the Watcher Golem and signals the squad to follow him. Back in the forest, the imposters celebrate how easy the job was, but the mage controlling the golem shuts them up at once. She copied the purification circle from Altar's earlier explanation, but holding it together is harder than she expected. Heron pauses and thanks the others. Back on the battlefield, the elf warriors start losing heart after their elder leaves. Even so, morale continues sinking, and the elder's absence hits the elves hard. That place belongs to the chief priestess. The tree picks her, and only an elder blessed by it can lead. She was born blind, and after giving birth to Kiara, she became paralyzed, yet she's still wise and deeply respected. Kira may be the child from it, which would make her only half-elf, and the reason she is not accepted as a high elf. He only want to protect the queen. Back with Hiran's group, the mage feels guilty for leaving the other elves behind. 4 years ago, they sent the Black and Silver Moon forces into human territory and began a war. Then the strongest moon elf left with the seed box, leaving her to deal with a ruined kingdom. To the mage it all feels fake. Even if they kill the dragon, she thinks their kingdom is already finished. When they reach the tower holding the Tree of Life seed, Hiran stares ahead, fully determined. Yet to their shock, a huge red monster is already waiting there, raking its claws against the tower. Yet no one has heard a thing about those lands since. One to distract the creature, the other to grab the sealed box. Yet they do not know the demon has spent 3 years searching for that exact box. Once Masha, a queen candidate from 60 years ago, after becoming a demon she lost herself completely. Enraged that they had pulled humanity into war, he punished them. He tells the smiling woman beside him that both stones contain the same parasitic worms, but each creates different powers after demonification. The stronger those feelings are, the stronger the new demon becomes. Their future, their place, their lives. Watching it happen, the smiling woman asks what the master's real goal is, but he says he has none. As they grow used to their new powers, Olden gives them demon soldiers for a new task. Even so, if they want to drag their enemies into hell, they need the dragon's heart, so they jump straight into the den where the blue dragon waits. Meanwhile, during a private wine gathering at the parish, one apostle asks Olden why he sent such weak elves after the blue dragon. They came from the famous Moon High Elf family and were known for strong light magic. What shocked them even more was that she was picked despite her condition and her connection to a human. Her selection destroyed their shot at the throne. The apostles guess they may have began the war to make others acknowledge their power. Before their exile, they fought one last time and lost to a young elf who had only recently earned his moon title. Back in the dragon's den, the blue dragon swallows the black moon whole. That's exactly what he's using. The reason is Black Moon's demonic power, deadly venom, and petrification. Just as he expected, the dragon takes off for the lake. Crimson Moon is not hanging on because of any plan. Pulled by a familiar energy that stirs broken memories. Yet her damaged mind continues her from going inside. From that day on, she kept tearing at the tower walls. As her mind clears, her revenge grows sharper. It leads straight to the source, the sick queen. The demon carries worms inside her parasites that grow stronger with their host. For Crimson Moon, that power is gluttony. In moments, the monster reaches the edge of the elven village and bursts into the queen's chamber. Yet before the blow can land, slashes hit the demon from every side. Now that Crimson Moon is right in front of him, Ned finally understands what he meant. Only 8 minutes remain before the camp's purification magic runs out. Every second matters if everyone else is going to survive. That's the very reason this raid failed in his past life. Yet the moment he reached for it, he stopped cold when he saw a barrier around the corpse. Worse, it came out holding the dragon heart in its claws. Seeing how bad it was, Alter ordered everyone to retreat. Back in the present, Zephyr fights with all of that in his head. They failed because they were missing one key piece of information. A weak point he spotted from the way it moved during an earlier clash. By then, the poison may have eaten away at the dragon and created that wound. So he decides to make his own opening. To Zephyr's shock, time itself freezes, drops of water hang in place, leaves stop in midair, and even the wind goes still. Even the silver key will not answer. The shots hit the instant time begins moving again. That barrage creates just enough of an opening for Zephyr to land a huge strike on the dragon's body. Dariel has 17 black dragon arrows left. He remembers that this was where they lost the dragon heart in his old life. Back then, the dragon fought with memories of its prime, faster, stronger, and much crueler. Zephyr takes the hit and is surprised it does not hurt as much as it used to. Zephyr whips out his dragon chains and knocks them away one by one. A faint flash appears in the air, the silver key. Meanwhile, Dariel's arrows hit true, cutting off the dragon's right arm and sending it crashing into the lake. That sight pulls up an old memory. In the end, Giorgio struck the last blow with the dragon's slaying sword Graham and ended Casaurus's life. If they met again, he would kill Giorgios himself. Yet Dariel feels that something is wrong. Then the dragon speaks in a deep rumbling voice. With that, the dragon grabs the stake and rips it from its neck. Gripping the sword, the dragon declares that its duty is not over yet. He has just 12 minutes of dragonification left. Zephyr knows tricks will not save him here. The dragon brings down a massive energy-filled slash and Zephyr meets it with a charged swing of his own. The elves watching in the distance are stunned. Those lessons were not just about hitting harder. Holding on to that lesson, Zephyr slips past the next strike and rushes in. When he lands, he spots something buried deep inside the wounds he just opened. Then he remembers an old talk with a vanguard from his past life, the dragon's hidden weak point. Once they latch on, the beast drags him into the water with it. They cannot track the monster underwater. Philip stares in shock as Dariel begins shooting, but Dariel knows exactly what he's doing. Zephyr uses the opening, kicks the dragon back, and drives his sword with all his strength into the exposed bone, making the creature scream. He apologized to the dragon as he drew his sword, saying he could not leave a danger to the queen's future alive. Then Georgios ordered the dragon to stay in its den until the red dragon calmed down. It's someone who carries on his will. Inside the dragon's stomach, Black Moon wakes up. Zephyr does not stop there and swings again, driving Black Moon into a tree. The power went wild and killed most of his own followers. Black Moon was not one of them, and it killed him instantly. He expected elves, not a dragonoid. Yet then, to his surprise, the target vanishes. Zephyr understands how sharp he is. From above, Black Moon offers to spare him if he hands over the dragon heart. While he continues talking, Zephyr quietly uses Dragon Tongue, a command spell, and orders Black Moon to stop moving. He knows he only has enough left for one last move. The goddess of light gave him that sword before when he was even weaker. Right then he's blasted back and swallowed by fire. In his hand he forms his ultimate skill. Then he leaps and drives it straight into Zephyr's chest. Someone stronger than him is crying out in pain. Before it hits, a strange sound rises from the lake and giant roots burst out from below. Zephyr explains that by gathering all the poison around him for his ultimate skill. So he guessed Black Moon had the same poison powers and baited him into using them, knowing it was the fastest way to clean the forest. Zephyr expected most of this, though the tree stepping in was still a surprise. He tries to spread poison again, but Zephyr steps in and calls him out. He calls him foolish and ungrateful. With that, Zephyr plunges the empowered claw into Black Moon's stomach, rips out the magic stone, and finishes him. Seeing that, Alder tells the others through her golem that the blue dragon is dead and the dragon heart is secured. Even while everyone celebrates, she tries reaching him again and gets nothing back. The Tree of Life catches him with its roots, quietly thanking him for saving it and choosing to save him too. He knows Zephyr did it, but even with that relief, Ned is badly hurt from fighting the Crimson Moon Demon. Ned has lost too much blood and cannot rebuild his body anymore. She tells him the vines are her hands. She swiftly sees how bad Ned's condition is and understands he needs help right away. In that memory, his mother holds him close. Those words stay with him as he finally wakes up. Then a deep voice tells him not to move. The voice explains that he's inside the trunk of the Tree of Life, then introduces himself as Yggdrasil. The ancient being says only his wife has ever seen this form, not even his children or anyone else in the forest. Yggdrasil says yes, but promises not to if Zephyr does not want that. Sensing that, Yggdrasil reassures him again he means no harm. It will speed up his recovery. Even so, he was able to watch Zephyr through his children. He remembers Dariel once telling him that his father was a demigod caught between elf and goat. Yggdrasil calmly answers that he did more than heal him. Whenever their output rises, they need to be reset. Yet before he can say anything, Yggdrasil reaches out and offers to place the blue dragon heart in his body. Yggdrasil says that 10,000 years ago, the first seed of the Tree of Life broke open. In the first stage, the air changed as mana spread through it, and the world's original waters became pure healing water. With their help, everything went smoothly while Yggdrasil waited for that promised day. At that point, he chose his family over his original mission and was willing to pay any price to protect them. Noticing the hesitation, Yggdrasil without warning asks how Zephyr dies in the future. The first thing he found was a link to Zephyr's mother, but that gave him no useful clue. He thinks it may be a prophecy, an incredibly clear one at that. Letting Yggdrasil think it's only a prophecy feels safer. He points out that if he had seen a future where he lived until the world's end, then Zephyr would never have tried to save him. It's the same oath ring mark he got after killing the cult leader Olden. His mind is not strong enough yet to handle its power. Then he explains that both he and the 7 dragons serve a mission given by the Almighty One, and they cannot abandon it until death. Hearing that Zephyr begins to wonder if he too might become an enemy like the dragons, Yggdrasil gives no clear answer. She knew her life would be short, but she loved him and wanted a child with him. She even refused the chalice of conception, the sacred tool elf royalty uses to create life, and chose to try naturally despite the risk. He believes Zephyr will understand that one day too. As he lies back and closes his eyes, Yggdrasil begins guiding the blue dragon heart's power with his divine strength. With that, he is drawn into his mental world where he has to face the blue dragon's will. That proves Zephyr can trust him. So Zephyr decides to leave the transplant to him. Last life, this trial took him a month. The moment he shifts into dragon form, the blue dragon appears and at once spots the change. She calmly reminds him they've already fought, so he has no reason to be shaken by how she looks now. Meanwhile in the forest, Dariel tells everyone Zephyr is safe and with his father. The Tree of Life is likely treating him. That only brings up a worse question. He knows living beings feel most natural in their true shape, and they usually transform to show dominance, respect, or to deceive. So this form is either respect or a show of superiority. She adds that Zephyr's mind feels comfortable to her, likely because it's filled with the ancient power of the Kaiserus. A wave of magic without warning spreads through the whole area. Zephyr remembers meeting her inside his mind in his past life too. She would beat him down, bring him back while he was barely alive, and attack again. In the end, those brutal fights train him without her even meaning to. As his frustration builds, Artalis spots and asks about it, which just makes him even more annoyed. Before that though, she wants to see some of Zephyr's cute little tricks. Her last battle was worthy of her pride. Their training pain and unshaken will reveal the true shape of their soul. She also feels the huge energy inside him and senses rare potential. Whether he can handle it is up to him, as she hands over the dragon heart. He also gets what she meant about dying before truly living a full life. She smiles and says he will not need to. Then everyone's shocked Zephyr steps out. She reports that another ancient god has chosen the new master, a sign that the future of the world is changing. It says Olden has been murdered. In the realm of the Silver Key, The angel kneels in prayer and remembers the prophecy of a war so terrible it will turn rivers to blood. Even so, they believe someone will appear at the end of the world and save them from that fate. While resting in the Tree of Life, Zephyr thinks about everything that happened outside. Princess Alter confirms the place is Elfenheim, capital of the Elven Kingdom. Soon Ned arrives too, bringing the Elf Queen, who has finally awakened. Zephyr reflects on how exhausting it was to treat the wounded, clear the battlefield, and search for the missing. Most of them lost their homes in this disaster. Now everyone has to face what survival cost, the dead and every sacrifice made. Swearing on the Tree of Life, she promises the elves will never forget this debt. They seal a non-aggression pact and vow to share future hardship and victory alike. Trying a raid under those conditions had seemed too early. She rejected the idea of taking advantage of the elves while they were weak. Saying he had no time, he even sold off his Danakil stocks and land bonds. The elves were even worse off since they had not had contact with humans for centuries. By saving both Danakil and the elves, she plans to bind them into an alliance that supports her instead of human kingdoms like Cayenne. A celebration begins and the Elf Queen raises a toast to their hard-earned victory. Kira says it's hard to believe Zephyr and his group arrived less than 6 weeks ago. Dariel teases her for sounding corny, but Kira reveals she's already decided to leave the forest soon. Right then, someone knocks at her door. Even before becoming an adult, she knew very few could walk her path. At some point, Alir accepted she might always be alone, and she can live with that. When Polaris, twisted and dangerous, reached for her, and she had to run. To her, love only creates weakness. Ophelia, noticing how much Alter has changed since Zephyr arrived, comments to Ned on how often the two are together. Feeling left behind, Ophelia admits she feels abandoned. Drinking with Ned, she vents her hurt while he figures she either does not understand romance or just does not like him. It's his second time, so probably be fine. If he beat the blue dragon in under 10 minutes, they could continue where they left off. Now outside her door, he cannot help wondering what Alter has planned. He knows Alter has feelings for him too. She does not remember their past lives, so of course her desire is not as intense as his. So he steps into her room and when he sees her, he understands he's in trouble. Instead of speaking, Zephyr kisses her right at the door. That night, they lie together and she remembers how sure she was that she'd always be alone, that love meant nothing. Yet now she knows he was beside her the whole time. Now she cannot even picture the pain he carried after losing everyone and being forced to keep going alone. She stayed up all night after that, unable to sleep, wanting to do anything she could for him. Sure, the holy barrier should have kept him out, but Fade says he came for something else. Somewhere else Dariel trains with his bow. Now Kira is grown and when the time comes to leave, she chooses to go with Zephyr, saying it sounds fun and maybe she'll run into Fade too. People whispered that her unusual eyes and bright hair meant she was half human. So Dariel wonders if she was never meant to stay in the forest at all. She says she came to hear his sound and after listening calls it the most beautiful sound in the world. His shots are accurate, but she tells him to fire with his heart and trust the people around him. Leave the forest and take Kira with him. A meeting is called right away. Dariel then quietly needles Kira about saying she'd leave alone before, and she gets embarrassed saying there was no way she could have known what her mother planned. She believes this may be their people's only chance to endure. Then she hands Kira the box with the seed. It was meant to make her seem smaller and less important than the others. She was happy when her mother woke up. Deep down, she feared hearing truths she did not want confirmed, and that fear made her want to leave without talking to her. Back in the meeting, Princess Alter praises Dariel for what he did in the dragon raid, and says his efforts were clearly spotted. As the meeting begins, she brings out 2 urgent letters. One letter came from a contact in his caravan near the 3rd parish. Zephyr already knows what most people would suspect. No matter which is true, investors are in chaos. Since the Temple of Light promoted the Dragon Heart to pull in funding, it may be blamed for the damage too. Philip adds that Lucius is badly behind on payments for borrowing the Stake of Faith, a legendary great item. Meanwhile, others have come looking for Lord Olden, who has gone completely silent. Ned points out that the 3rd parish was already weakened after the raid, so it would not hold long in a siege without backup. What matters is the weapon used, a famous blade tied to Zephyr's past. He thinks back on how Requiem had been his final weapon in his previous life. From the moment this guy showed up, he became the strongest man on the continent, which irritates Zephyr to no end. Yet Aaron humbly says he's only the 6th strongest warrior in the land, stunning everyone there. So Aaron begins naming the people above him. He puts Dariel in 7th, Dominique of the Temple of Light in 8th, the mercenary King Gladys in 9th, and the Twin Knights in 10th. A lot of self-proclaimed strong fighters challenged the people on the list and lost, which only made the rankings seem more real. Since then the rankings have not changed for 2 years. He seems much stronger than him, and Ned is not even on it. They also stayed out of the spotlight on purpose since too much attention would only make things harder. Zephyr remembers that in his previous life, chaos exploded after Erdius appeared. Princess Alder says that a mysterious man carrying Rikukwum, John Howell's legendary sword, is claiming to be the Bladem's final disciple. She adds that John Howell matters a lot to the leader of the Demon Lord worshippers, since she's one of the few people who could stop his plans. She's never heard of a dragon taking a disciple before, and she cannot believe that kind of magic came back. Dariel gets stuck on the name John, thinking it sounds like a man's name. Even so, the bigger shock is that this supposed master is a dragon disciple. She adds that her master's last incarnation vanished 6 years ago when its time ran out, so it makes no sense for this new disciple to have trained under her. She cannot say that out loud though. Philip Pilgrim shifts to the real problem, the sword. He asks why Ardius would enter the marriage tournament when the duel was public and impossible to hide. Zephyr says the timing is what bothers him. Even so, they gain Madius, a close aide of the Holy One, which gives them a way into the third parish. His guess is that Jinang, the Holy One, and the agent called Tarantula joined hands and took out Olden. Lucius will probably take most of the blame first, but the sharper ones will start thinking about a hidden mastermind. Philip Pilgrim asks if Zephyr means this could all be a trap. Real sword are not meant to drag Alter down. Then they move on to how to test the sword. He agrees to leave for Lindel right away. If this is a trap, he'll deal with that too. Zephyr figures the head of the Demon Lord worshippers has probably heard about Erdurius by now, but will not move yet. One of the girls spots Zephyr and challenges him, backing Erdurius's victory and telling him to speak up before it turns into a bigger scene. Then Erdurius suggests they take the fight somewhere else. Then he activates Dragon Tongue, and Erdurius without warning loses control of his body and drops to the ground. One of them points out that Erdurius was just taken away, and whatever Zephyr used was strange and incredibly strong. A nun sent from the Sky Temple to the Baron family stops them. He was sitting alone on a ledge when Nena joined him. Erdurius said he'd do it later. He's rough, but his heart is in the right place. In the end, he charged alone into the boss monster's den and killed it a week later. Over the next 6 months, Erdurius cleared monsters from 3 nearby regions. Erdurius turned him down politely, saying he had to go to the princess. The Baron pushed for his daughter to go with him. When Nina asks what they should do, the sister says they can follow from afar and watch in secret. A basic dragon tongue usually takes knights at least 30 minutes to break, but Erdurius did it in 12. That tells him he's carrying something powerful. He begins wondering what Zephyr really is. Then he uses Cradle of the Earth, a rare white dragon skill that lets him store items underground. He gives his name properly, a disciple of Blade Master John Howell. It blocks many debuffs and resists heat, cold, poison, curses, and even the weakening effects of dragon skills. Zephyr notes he's already wearing it, judges his level, and draws his own weapon with a silver key. He also makes it clear that he has a dragon heart in his chest. Erdurius asks if that means Zephyr wants Rikukwum in return, but he says no. He only wants the right to give him a nickname, something like Whiteybick or just Mutt. Both of them start going all out. Wanting to test himself, he activates Lion's Roar, a special power from the Ovirian mythal armor. Erdurius has gotten even stronger since they last saw him. To him, this is finally a real fight. He cannot even move like some unseen forces pinning down his whole body. That skill lets the user call up the dragon's former image and borrow its powers and traits. After seeing where Erdurius is now, he understands he still had a lot more room to grow. If he left Lindel Fortress out of boredom, they might never have met again. He sees huge promise in him and decides that this time he will not rise alone. When the duel ends, he declares his win, tells him to accept him as master, and sticks him with the nickname Mutt. She believes Alter will finish the magic on her own. Some gave up and some fell to corruption. Quietly, she wishes she could have healed Alter's heart completely and hopes someone will stand beside her when she meets her original self again. Confused and struggling even in spirit form, she ends up in a strange dusty place. He casually wonders whether to grill or boil her, having no clue who she really is. She taught him swordsmanship until her body vanished about 6 months earlier. Durius used to be wild, but now he shows restraint and discipline, and Zephyr sees that as the natural result of what he's been through. Meanwhile, the battered Erdurius thinks about how boring fights have been since he left his master. Erdurius can tell Zephyr still has not shown everything and he's dying to learn what he's hiding someday. Erdurius eagerly says yes and promises he'll have the energy for anything. The blow launches Erdurius into a wall with a huge crash. So Zephyr asks if risking his life in a duel really honors that request. He does not plan to send him away, but he does decide to keep an eye on him. 2 days later, at the third parish of the Temple of Light while spying, Ned spots something disturbing. Ophelia says the worshippers have likely slipped into these units or maybe even taken them over. Since they are still hiding under the temple's name, they will not launch a full assault without a good excuse. That's why Zephyr said timing was everything. They were picked because they are fast and hard to detect. The elf and queen gave them those bracelets before they left the Great Elf Forest. She also says their mission includes stopping dangerous wildcards from interfering people like the Smiling Woman. Meanwhile, the third parish is getting ready for invasion. Alder knew the two would work best together, so she pushed them to keep holding hands and stay hidden. She also had the healers help with recovery. She wanted Alder to recommend her thesis, so the delay bothered her. Seeing her chance to stand out, Daisy eagerly shared her plans and designs, hoping to prove herself to Her Highness. Back at camp, Zephyr makes Erdurius cut onions. Annoyed, Erdurius curses the White Dragon for leaving that setting on. Even so, Zephyr knows Erdurius is not here only because he loves fighting. Within a few years, another talent will awaken and change his future. Even though Erdurius gave everything, he still could not save everyone. Meanwhile, Zephyr prepares food for his new guests. Yet before he goes there himself, he has another serious problem to solve. Sometime later, he forges 2 strong weapons and Erdurius is instantly thrilled. That knocks him flat, and Zephyr spots the axe suits him better. Zephyr at once sets a time limit. Finish it within a few hours and do not leave the castle grounds. Meanwhile, Ned and Aelia move through the shadows. This time, even carrier pigeons are blocked, so the Smiling Woman and the Demon Lord worshippers cannot get news from inside. At a graded entrance, he uses a magic tool called the Labyrinth Maker, which twists space so only people who make the right choice can pass. Then, the two of them start dancing to open the path. Redface, they work through the steps, and Aelia mutters that only a crazy person would make an entrance like this. The path spits them out at once, so they have to start all over. Then someone slips behind him and presses a knife to his head, even with a blade on him. The person calls it a robbery, but Lucius calmly says there is nothing left to take. Soon afterward, after some time alone together, they sit down to eat. For Lucius, it almost feels like a holiday, a rare break since he wiped out the demon worshippers in the parish. With all that pressure, this calm time with his family feels precious. The priest even called that generous since temple law says she should be in the underground prison. A woman who spent 100 years in a dungeon and holds strange powers might not even be human. It may be his only way to sway the one in charge. He also fears some people high in the temple secretly serve the demon lord and would vote against her. Just as she's about to return to confinement, she without warning passes out. The shield blocks more of the gas, but he still has to find whoever attacked. It's Fade already sitting beside him. Lucius also spots a tattoo on his arm, the mark of the legendary assassin guild that makes him uneasy. What bothers him most is the sleeping gas. Fade's timing, confidence, and actions do not fit. Fade confirms it, hinting that Lucius is thinking clearly, just as he should. His lands are famous for hosting powerful guests, and rumors say even royals from fallen kingdoms and assassins stay there. He also confirmed whether Lucius had the worm. Fade agrees and says Lucius' wife and son will wake up in 6 hours, so purification magic is not needed. He asks about Zephyr and Lucius is stunned that Fade knows the name. He should worry about what happens if he answers wrong. The culvert connects to the sewage line, and if even one priest gets out that way, their words could spark a bigger move against him. Fade opens a small vial of antidote and says Lucius can have it, but only if he tells him everything he knows about Zephyr. Getting out is much easier, and soldiers are posted there. Sound the alarm if anyone passes through without permission. He says his knights are already waiting in the chamber beside the culvert and can easily stop the priests. That means the poison might be removable from a distance, even without the antidote. Feeling the odds swing back his way, the Holy One demands to know who Fade really is. In the knight's waiting room, they are already out cold, trapped in their own dreams. Yet this man still landed a hit. Yet Lucius looks just as surprised. It was Ned's mist bracelet, an artifact with incredibly strong stealth, even when only one half is worn. Ned is hiding his weapon on purpose, making his next move hard to read. Then Fade draws his whip sword. As he moves, Ned remembers what Zephyr told him about Fade, that if he ever got the chance, he should try to recruit him. Fade respects strength and nothing else. One of those toxins boosts Fade's physical power, and the effect changes depending on the type and dose. Ned knows Zephyr is making him do something absurd again, but he understands the reason. On top of that, he carries the Elf Queen's blessing, making him especially suited for this fight. With that, Lucius knows what he has to do next. He cannot figure out how his stealth got broken, and the force Ned hit him with feels strangely familiar. To get ready, she uses a magic seed the elves gave her. She's worried Ned may need backup. She runs over and finds Zephyr already there. Then, without waiting, he begins smashing furniture and decorations with his axe. Zephyr stops and mutters that the time is up. He says the poison was called Venom Spear, and he purified it with black moonstone, so it would not be harmful. For a second, even Mercedes is tempted by the smell. She pretends not to care and tells Zephyr the room is his. Mercedes is still upset, but the taste wins her over. He thought the Sword of Light was meant for him, but right when he was about to use it, they told him he could not. From now on he'll relax, eat, and let the gods watch. She cannot believe a human would talk to them like this and act with such nerve. She's shocked the gods actually answered his outburst. Back in the third parish, Ned and Fade keep trading precise strikes. Injected poison with a needle and was last seen following the Saints' raid party. Even so, Ned's movements bother him. He suspects Ned trained in Eastern martial arts, maybe even worked as an assassin. Ned shuts them all down at once, but Fade follows with poison smoke. Only then does he notice that during the fight, Lucius slipped out through the door. Ned, on the other hand, trusts Lucius. He also knows beating Fade will take a special skill, but its conditions are too hard to trigger in a one-on-one battle. He asks if Fade wants revenge on the man using dragon arts or on their former master. He points out that their goals may be the same and suggests they work together. In Ev's eyes, Zephyr cares about nothing and hurls people away once they are no longer useful. This is his first real lead, and he will not let it go. The weapon's strange energy shocks. Fade without warning rushes him, but Ned's mind slips to the past. That old fear comes back at once. He's stunned, especially when he sees the blow came from the woman beside him. At first, he thinks the scream did it, but then he understands she's one of his kind. That leaves the final step to Ned. She warned him it was dangerous, something humans once wanted, but she refused to hand over. Keeping that in mind, Ned grips Fa's shoulder and begins the spell. Olden was not the strongest apostle in battle, but he was great at gathering information. She's looking for Olden, but the hut already tells her the truth. Her master's warning comes back to her. He ordered her to investigate everything herself and kill any traitor she found. Now, as the succeeding disciple, her first duty is obvious. So he ordered her to deal with the traitors first. Soon afterward, while looking at his old pocket watch, she understands that after losing her memory, the only thing she still remembers are her name and the gift from her brother. Her master's place and maybe even his life may depend on it. Meanwhile, outside the third parish's main building, Ned tells Fade that the Master of the East trained 2 official succeeding disciples, but also raised several secret shadow disciples as backup. He adds that all of the Master Shadow disciples were taught poison arts. His master taught him Eastern arts like needle techniques and acupoint blocking. Even so, there is one good sign. Ned spots the red mark on Fade's face has spread since the last time he saw him. Aelia continues watch all day, but she sees no sign of a real siege starting. Meanwhile, Lucius takes advantage of everyone focusing on the Blue Dragon raid and begins setting up a second strike, the Ice Dragon raid. It's like both armies are waiting until they hit their limit. Every soldier and commander turns to look. It's Mathis Grimmer, the old inquisitor of the third parish and former vanguard captain from the raid. Sidesi early and mocked as Lucius' leftover dog. He saw Matthias turn into a demon, killed himself, and watched the body burn to ash. She traces it to Jin Ryang, the master of the East, who trained that weapon into an expert of disguise and deceit. Even so, the goal is obvious. Then, fake Matthias begins telling his story. He also claims Lucius worked with Ned, calling him a demon worshipper. Matthias looks exactly like his older sister, and he cannot understand how she could call him a demon lord worshipper in front of everyone. He seems amused by it, but points out that a senior inquisitor still has no power to arrest the Holy One, who stands far above him. Next, he activates a Heragrade holy relic called Themes's Judgment. If someone lies, it fires an arrow at them, and it can do that 3 times a day. Yet the smiling woman can control her muscles and fake emotion deep down, so she's sure even a holy relic will not catch her. Cornwall, a first-class inspector from the Temple of Light's Financial Council, accepts that result and approves the charge. The smiling woman quietly thinks about how ridiculous all this is. Shameless people waiting for someone else to open the temple for them. Her thoughts turn even darker, and she begins thinking it may be easier to burn everything down. The only thing that matters to her is whether Olden is alive. Aelia, one of the 10 great warriors and a known guard of Princess Cornwall, also spots the man beside her, and his face feels strangely familiar. Even if they sound sure the belief itself could be fake, then she accuses the fake Mayas of lying and twisting the situation. The lightning burns the outer clothes and disrupts her mana flow, exposing the real body underneath. She turns to Ned and calls him a traitor, swearing he'll die before the day is over. Ned swiftly recognizes it as a Shaggoth, but something is wrong. This is not an ordinary Shaggoth anymore. Cornwall is hit by fear at once. Cornwall soon understands everyone just reacted to one of the Basilicos skills. Cornwall understands right away this is a full monster assault with the Basilicos leading it. Benjamin watches the chaos and warns them not to scatter. As people start petrifying, he summons the staff of benevolence. Benjamin orders everyone to focus on the monsters, then asks Cornwall to buy him time because he knows a way to kill the creature. When he activates it, a giant stone statue appears and attacks with its spear. Benjamin thinks over what a Basilicos is, an evolved Shoggoth that attacks the mind. Only magic or elemental damage can hurt it. What does worry him is one special trait reported in past battles, a second mouth on the tail. If it goes off, up to 80% of the force could die. A priest tells him land monsters will arrive in 10 minutes and flying ones 2 minutes after that. He decides to use the Holy Family's golden mirror, a legend-grade holy relic. To do that, they all use the dagger of the Holy Sanctuary, a skill that draws mana from its users. It's far more power than he's used to and he can barely stay upright. If he'd rented it like the stake of faith, he could use it more freely. Even so, he chooses survival over the rules. Then for Olden's sake, she forcibly turns the aim toward the gate. The apostle is sure Gertrude's obsession with Olden will keep her following their plan. He says they need a proper reason first. If they follow that process, no one can say they acted without cause. A fellow says he's trying to squeeze everything useful out of the Holy One while keeping his own place safe in the spotlight. They've climbed too high in the Temple of Light to throw away their power now, so she tells them to gather themselves and get ready for a second attack. Cornwall demands to know what Benjamin and Gertrude think they are doing. It also says they'll reach the weakened temple barrier in 30 minutes. Princess Alter worries the barrier from the dungeon. Dariel says he'll provide arrow support and asks Kira to work out the coordinates. Even though they try to avoid the incoming slash, some of the soldiers still get hit and go down. When the dust clears, a voice mocks how lucky they were. Back in the third parish, Ned and Alia team up against the smiling woman in a 2-on-1 fight. She attacks again, but Ned slips past it. All at once, the sound of a barrier shattering rings out. Ned and Aphilia run after her without delay. That music triggers the monster's strange mouth skill meant to stop the priest chasing after them. At first, the priests freeze in confusion. Anyone touched by it goes berserk. Moments later, things get even worse. The demon lord worshippers stay safe under the flute's protection. Numbers matter, and in moments like this, Ned has to trust his own call. He stays behind to deal with the monsters. As Aphilia closes in on Marias, ready to strike, the monster cuts in and traps her before she can finish it. She begins charging Falling Thunder as she drops in for the hit. Seeing him, Ned understands he is not fighting alone anymore. With that resolve, Ned swings again and again, cutting through monsters and enemies with his electric power. Ned believes helping Zephyr reach that dream will finally end this war the right way. No one has heard his voice in 50 days. Now he says he brings her answer. Those who believe will receive her blessing. When everyone looks up, they see Zephyr in dragon form. He had finally opened the letter from the goddess of light, and that axe begins the miracle. They know this sword appears only once every few hundred years, and is given only to the chosen. Erdius had taken all the attention, but looking back, staying unseen, let Zephyr move quietly, ambush enemies, and grab rare chances to grow stronger. Yet this time he does not need to. Even now, he still does not know what her voice sounds like. He had to protect the Holy One. He understands he can use the sword for 10 months. Back in the present, Zephyr uses Dragon Tongue, forcing every human to kneel and locking the monsters in place. Even Ned and Alia are caught by it. Then she understands the one before her is not the saint with the dragon heart. Yet just as she's about to escape, something hits her from behind and leaves her dizzy. He knows it's really her because he marked her earlier with a special poison, and its smell still gives her away. With the Sword of Light and the 2 dragon hearts inside him through Yggdrasil, his current output has reached 24.5 for both hearts. In his past life, no matter how strong he got, people never truly believed in him. That way of thinking stole important chances from him and helped lead to his separation from Alter. Their pride kept them from letting him lead, even when working together was the only way to survive. He knew he would need numbers against the enemies ahead, and strong allies mattered no matter how they felt about him. The proof that he's the chosen one is in his hands. Then from inside his silver key, he draws the blue dragon's severed head, using it to expose the real problem, the corruption inside Danakil. That same day, Lucius's public prayer spreads across the whole continent. After reading it, the royal court grows uneasy. On top of that, too many people saw what happened, and no one is going to question the missing dragon heart. From here on, Zephyr stands at the center of the world's story. He was born with a gifted body and learned martial arts faster than anyone else. With a name that means strong dragon, Jingen believes it fits him perfectly. He also sees Ned as stubborn and stupid for refusing the worm. Refusing the worm is just empty pride to him. The only thing that will matter is demon power. Even so, he has no respect for Ned and believes he alone is meant to become the true dragon. Now Jinganok is trapped, pinned down by magic roots and sealing spells from Alter's group, including Dariel. He's already beaten dozens of Dragon King-style disciples by himself. Meanwhile, Kira backs everyone up with her root spell and pollen rush, handling the other demon lord worshippers who came with Jingo. Dariel's enchanted bow, boosted by Eliza's support, works especially well. He dropped his guard and gave them time to stack their buffs. Yet before he can finish, one of Dariel's arrows hits him in the head and blows it apart. Killing him was the safest choice. As that thought sinks in, a small blush creeps onto her face at the idea of seeing him soon. They arrive at night and finally reunite with Zephyr. Watching from afar, Cornwall gets confused when he sees Princess Alter standing so close to Zephyr and begins wondering if they knew each other already. Fade turns it down, saying he does not like him. When Kira calls his name as she runs toward him, he disappears. Fighting him now would be pointless. At the 13th parish, Prince Polaris finishes reading the report and laughs. Curious now, he says he wants to meet Zephyr himself. The next day, every force surrounding the 3rd parish withdraws. Meanwhile, the Finance Council is pleased by a new investment tied to Zephyr. Meanwhile, Gertrude and the knights who slipped into the parish to find Olden are arrested and thrown in jail while the case is investigated. The priest beside her says things could have become far worse if Olden's death had gotten out. To the High Priestess, it almost feels finished, yet something still seems off. They dealt with the smiling woman, and even an angel appeared delivering Lucius a letter from the goddess of light herself. Lucius feels deeply honored by the message and swiftly assumes the emissary must be Zephyr. What Lucius does not know is that the letter is fake. Fade gets a letter from Lucius's father saying he has arrived at the 3rd parish. He knows Fade could be a huge help in the coming Ice Dragon raid. A little later, Zephyr approaches and asks whether the smiling woman gave Faye anything useful. Watching this, Ned begins to think his guess was right. Even a truth serum gets nothing about the tarantula. At that point, Zephyr offers Fade help with his revenge. Startled, Fade swiftly agrees to hear him out. He says his master sent him to help Alder, and he's here to carry out that order. He did not arrive earlier, ideally during the Blue Dragon raid. Deep down he remembers what the White Dragon told him. That was what his master told him while in lizard form, which also meant he would one day have to kill the White Dragon's true form too. He also understands dragons could become powerful allies if used well, and that could make the coming war much easier. Maybe everyone at the table is being weighed down by that same fear, and it's clouding their thinking. After the meeting, Elise uses Angel's Embrace, a spell that checks a person's condition. Elise, though, has fun with that fear, joking that she rarely gets to examine a dragon, a veteran fighter, and an elf that annoys Fade. Around then, Alter arrives and asks about the smiling woman. Elise says their test point's somewhere else. The High Priestess explains that strong healing magic can fix a fresh injury like a severed finger, but it cannot restore damage from years ago. That may mean she does not even see people as people anymore. 13 years earlier, after the shipwreck, the waves carried her to an island. One day, crushed by pain and close to giving up, she smelled incense, and the ringing without warning stopped. That was how she met her mentor. Little by little, she found some peace. Sick of living among monsters, she wanted to find her little brother. Now she saw symbols and arrows floating over people, and it deeply unsettled her. It often uses poison and most subjects die. By matching her face to the patterns, she learned how to change her appearance completely. To do that, she has to escape this cell. When she spots him staring, she assumes he's the odd one. She asks whether he'd wash her himself. He gently lifts her chin, and when their eyes meet, she thinks her charm has worked. Instead, Zephyr leans in and coldly tells her to spit out the worm inside her. He remembers her from before, how she once tried to play him, acting close only to use him and toss him aside. Zephyr says he could kill her now, but he will not for her brother's sake. A burst of light without warning erupts from the cellar, and soon after, Zephyr walks out. Alder asks how long that will take. He wanted the smiling woman dead, not saved. The smiling woman is Ned's sister, so she cannot ignore her. Zephyr already left a safety seal there just in case. He meant to kill her, but because she's Ned's sister, he could not. He knows he cannot dwell on that. While he stands there thinking, a sandal flies past his head. There on the cold steps, they share a quiet, close moment. The next morning, the lockdown at the 3rd parish ends, and the council announces a big ceremony to celebrate the raid's end. The event also displays the rewards from the princess's dungeon raid, and several powerful party members are present, giving the gathering even more weight. He applauds, praises Alter, then turns to Zephyr, praising his performance, and saying he came here just to meet him. Polaris Albert Cayenne, the first prince of the Cayenne kingdom, and the youngest cardinal in the temple, is famous across Allen. Before he can respond, Lucius swiftly steps in to greet him. Noticing the tension, Polaris tries to smooth things over by reminding everyone he's only a priest. With a snap of his fingers, a group of cheerful children rushes in and gathers around Zephyr. Polaris then says the children are war refugees and orphans. Then Polaris kneels and thanks him. Polaris smoothly changes the subject and begins talking about the dungeon bubble collapse and the damage it caused across the continent. Another says those items must be priced by current market value and economic conditions. He goes on to say that raid items do not legally belong to the party until they are reported. Yet he makes it clear that paper value and real value are not the same. So of course its value is zero. His words sound warm and kind, but Lucius and Alder both feel the trap under that sweet talk. Polaris goes on saying that the moment he heard the news, he ran to his father and asked for Zephyr's arrest order to be undone. They agreed his act was a miracle from the goddess and could not be judged by human law. Lucius at once understands this is all a setup, just not the kind he expected. If they refuse, the Dragonheart's legitimacy gets questioned. Zephyr looks at Alder, hoping she'll step in, but swiftly remembers this whole scheme came from her brother. That gives him huge power, and going against him is essentially the same as defying the Golden Dragon. Then Polaris moves closer to Mimi and says he did not come to start another war. He knows this man is completely ridiculous. Another office must approve it, and eventually the support never comes. To stop their best members from leaving, guilds have to pay them too much, and dungeon gear, especially enchanted or special equipment, is costly. So when powerful people take all the profit, the party is doomed. He pushes the idea that if he wants to be treated as important, he has to obey the system no matter how strong he is. Every word is meant to rile him up and drive him toward anger, hoping one reckless move will ruin him. Meanwhile, Zephyr uses his silver key to call forth the Sword of Light. Instead, Princess Alter will decide what happens to the Dragon Heart. As he goes, he's thinking hard. To him, he has chosen a path that will only destroy him. Even on his way back, he continues thinking about Zephyr. He does not buy that Zephyr is simply acting out of kindness. Even so, he reminds himself that his real goal is summoning the Demon Lord. Besides, he already prepared a special gift, one he made himself. Erdurius seemed to believe him and accepted a necklace from him. When she asks why, he says he expected things to go much worse. Back then, Polaris's sudden appearance confused him. Even so, one thing still does not make sense to him. The answer came from Erdurius himself. That explains why Polaris seemed relieved in their last meeting. He acts like he does not know how to use the Dragon Heart, and it works exactly as planned. Zephyr understands that very well. Yet Polaris leaves without touching him and never reveals his tie to the Demon Lord cult. That means Polaris can only paint him as a danger to the kingdom, and try to destroy him through the Gold Dragon's influence, likely by stirring conflict inside the temple. Even though Polaris stepped back today, he knows he'll come at them harder next time, especially with Alder beside him. When Zephyr tells everyone to dig in, they are shocked by how good the food is and how filling it feels. While everyone eats, Alder asks when Zephyr learned to cook. Zephyr simply says dragon meat does not agree with him and leaves it at that. Even with Polaris interfering earlier, the dragon raid still moves forward on schedule. It's the biggest auction on the continent, handling millions of golden goods, including legendary items. Usually, it takes about half a year for an item to be listed. He remembers that once the date is locked in, a seller cannot pull out unless the auction house rejects the item. He also understands he cannot use his usual trick of checking the past, since these events have not happened yet. He arrived with a big group behind him. With the castle nearly empty, Hermes went to find the dragon by himself, saying he only wanted to talk. The ice dragon was nothing like he imagined. She had suspected her sister was mixed up in all this from the start, both driven by strong feelings and a need to protect their master and their own kind. Since he's her sister's disciple, she expected him to be tough. With one huge swing, Erdurius slams every one of them. Every hit matched, every move answered. Yet then she understands he never came to kill her. A quiet magical winter begins to spread. Even so, she gives him a way to keep going. At one point, he uses flint to make a fire, which Marinia has never seen before. Then the two share the roasted meat. Most humans lose their nerve under dragon power. She remembers her sister's other disciples too. She once knew him as a child, but now he's grown into someone that even unsettles her. Even after getting knocked down, he continues studying his mistakes, figuring out what failed and how to do better. Every clash helps him grow, and he loves that struggle. Now he can even land hits on Miria while she's a dragon. By then, he's carved out a small place to live inside the ice. That makes Mia look back on the past. Her own piece carried both blue and white. The two were different from the other dragons because they shared a deeper bond. Since then, Marinia has not had a talk like this with anyone, especially not someone tied to her sister's memories. Yet that would mean killing Marinia and her younger sister too. Marinia at once feels her sister's aura on it. As far as he knows, the princess plans to destroy all dragons, and he means to help her, just as his master told him. He thinks he's found another way to stop the world's end without killing dragons. Even so, the white dragon got a second chance by taking over a lizard's body. She told Erdurius to find Princess Alter and help her stop the end of the world. Even while saying that, the white dragon struggled to accept that Erdurius might not be able to do it, especially if it meant killing her or her sister. The idea of wiping out her kind weighed heavily on him, and he never reached a firm answer. The moment he recognized it, he destroyed it, believing that if he erased those threats early, he could stop the apocalypse without killing dragons. She said he was fooling himself even about her. If Erdurius proved useful there, she'd consider joining him. Over the next year, he cleared dungeons, gathering loot to prepare for the coming raid. Soon afterward, Princess Alter announced they had gained more funding for the Blue Dragon raid and gave Erdrias credit for bringing in more volunteers. Not long after, Fade joined too, sent by Duke Garnetti, and his first question was about the pay. When the time came, he opened the dungeon gate, signaling the start of the raid, and sent the vanguard toward the Lake of Life. Then he said he would eat the dragon heart as promised, and Princess Alter approved. While Erdrias preferred fighting alone too, he knew he could not watch Faye during the battle. For that, he used the demonic sword of sacrifice. As he attacked, the dragon briefly came fully awake and remembered the divine blade Requiem. To the dragon, that blade was both a gravestone and a funeral song. He barely avoids the first strike. In that moment, he begins wondering if this ordeal is awakening some hidden talent in him. He decided he had to take over the raid group. He could not accept anyone else taking it. He lost both the blue dragon and its heart. Sure, he could have stopped it if he'd stayed. It was not just about Adaris. From there, Fade said his contract was over and he was leaving. The princess did not fully understand the warning, but she began watching Adaris more closely. She froze all of Elfin and the Danikil farmlands. That wrecked Danikil's resources. From there, the Ice Dragon officially joined Altar's party. During the fight with the Black Dragon, Philip, head of the merchantry, was lost, and Fade left soon after because of his constant clashes with Adaris. More and more people took Adaris's side because he kept helping others without asking for anything back. Adaris said he was only trying to earn everyone's trust. Altar grew more uneasy, thinking her master must have ordered the Ice Dragon's death for a reason. When Fate arrived, he recognized Zephyr from the Third Parish right away and pinned him down, shocked that the boy had learned how to fight. Because of all that and Zephyr's growing influence, Altar began turning toward him. He told her to settle the terms first. Their first meeting was tense, and working as a two-man team was not easy for either Fate or Zephyr. He had brought up that same concern to the Ice Dragon before, and she reacted with rage. The knights who saw it felt relieved that the dragon was on their side. He's naive but naturally sly and hungry for fame. Even so annoyed that Zephyr can control him through the Silver Lion. Adaris stays convinced that only he should decide whether his master, the White Dragon familiar, lives or dies. Hearing that, Ned understands he needs to watch Adaris carefully. Meanwhile, Oilia quietly asks Lucius if it's really safe to leave the parish with his father about to arrive. Lucius also brings up his firstborn and second sibling, which catches Ned off guard. Altar was stunned to learn Vitel was still alive, and even more shocked that he was now the Academy's dean, the same school where she once studied under him. She remembers barely showing up at the Academy and leaving the dean with a bad impression. Zephyr, meanwhile, has another urgent problem. All he has to guide him is the prophecy tied to the Sword of Light. A beam of light shoots into the sky and Zephyr instantly knows it's pointing at the target, who seems to be getting closer fast. When the dragon lands, Philip, leader of the merchantry, is with them. Seeing the group's condition getting worse, he brought the Duke and Professor Vittel with him. The Duke profited heavily from the bubble collapse, and his harsh investments only made the damage worse. Selfish, short-sighted, and focused only on his family's profit. Altar, on the other hand, is excited to see him. In that timeline, the Duke badly underestimated Olden. Yet she also sees the problem that came with it. He says he has real battle experience from the dragon raid, and adds that he and Ned even beat the dungeon princess by themselves. He will not be giving them money. He reminds him that Zephyr saved his life and is the only one who can help with the dragon raid. That only makes Lucius more upset. Before the Duke can pile on more terms, Zephyr steps in and cuts him off. Then he summons the light sword and swears an oath declaring that he was sent by the goddess of light. From there, the Duke quietly agrees to help, and Big Cap sends each group to its job. Philip leads the auction team toward the capital. Kira is nervous without Zephyr around, but Dariel tells her not to worry. After traveling for a while, the scout team reaches the blazing forest. Zephyr only says they have to reach their destination, but he has another reason too. In his previous life, they once used the dungeon princess's tomb as a hideout. He did not care about the dragon heart. Back then, Zephyr did not bother asking, and even with all his power, the Duke never let anyone know what he really wanted. He wants to help him reach it. Now, on Mount Sila, Zephyr studies the Duke more carefully than ever, because the old man is still chasing the same hidden wish from the previous timeline. This time Zephyr is not blindly following events. He is choosing allies, stealing opportunities from fate, and cutting off disasters before they can fully form. Every debt, dungeon, betrayal, and hard-won alliance has carried him farther from the helpless slave who first woke inside that ruined temple. Zephyr failed humanity once, and his second life has become a relentless march toward a future that will not end the same way.